Hello, everyone, and welcome to our reading of Danny DeVito presents Roald Dahl's classic Matilda. Helping me read this amazing script is this wonderful cast. First, we have our scene description, as well as Boost Brogtrotter, and that will be Logan. Our title character, Matilda, we play by Angie. Oh my God. Amazing. Our quarantine theater company's Danny DeVito will be George. The amazing Rhea Perlman from Cheers will be played by Nicole.
What's up?
Our lovely Miss Honey, as well as Mrs. Phelps, will be played by Karina. And Lavender, as well as Amanda Thripp. You can see the wonderful pigtails will be played by Anne. And I am going to be the horrifying Miss Trunchbull. But until that character comes up, I am going to be off camera until then. All right, are we ready for this? All right, Logan, take us away.
Matilda, screenplay by Nicholas Kazan and Robin Sweekward, adapted from the novel by Roald Dahl. Black screen, serene music. After a beat, a very calm voice speaks.
Everyone is born.
Close up, a newborn infant screaming. Comical effect. Move to reveal the face of a second infant, also screaming.
But not everyone is born the same.
Continue moving, pulling back slightly. Interior hospital nursery day. Moving down a row of newborn children.
Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad.
Hold on one infant with a pink card.
One way or another, though, every human being is unique.
Through the nursery viewing window, pressed to the glass, is the dismayed face of Harry Wormwood.
For better or worse.
Inside the nursery, the sweet generic nurse picks up the pink bundle marked Wormwood and holds it up for Mr. Wormwood. Want to hold her? Wormwood spins on his heels, hurries away down the hospital corridor. Interior semi-private hospital room day. Mrs. Wormwood, 38, a blowsy bottle blonde. This week, it's platinum. Who wears plenty of makeup, even in the hospital, lies in her bed in her hospital gown, eating a box of eclairs, watching a soap opera, a People magazine propped up on her belly. She chats on the phone, mindless background babble.
All right, like she's seen me before. No, that's her eyeliner.
Her husband storms into the room.
It's a girl?
She shrugs at him. So sue me. Exterior hospital day. Other parents exit, cooing obnoxiously over their newborns.
Most parents believe their children are the most beautiful and remarkable creatures ever to grace the planet.
The Wormwoods burst out, with Zinnia Wormwood haphazardly stuffing a swaddled baby into her large pocketbook. Here begins a section of physical comedy involving the baby as a prop. The dialogue over it as just a means to get from here to there while continually endangering the baby.
Others take a less emotional approach.
Of long habit, the Wormwoods argue as they stride towards their car. Harry Wormwood examines the long printout hospital receipt.
$9.25 for rice pudding?
I had seconds.
Rummaging under the baby in her handbag, she finds her lipstick, shoves the baby at Wormwood, who mindlessly tucks the baby under his elbow like an old football.
Who has seconds on rice pudding?
I do.
Yeah, right. While you were in there, I wouldn't have killed you to do a little body.
Almost dropping the baby as he grapples with the hospital invoice, trying to find the bottom line.
I wouldn't start talking physique, Melon Man.
$3,000?
Arriving at their station wagon, Harry sets the baby on top, continuing without pause.
Well, I'm not paying it. What's the hospital going to do? Repossess the kid?
Harry laughs, gets in, and slams the car door. The infant rolls from the roof onto the front hood. Zinnia scoops up the baby.
We should all be so lucky.
She opens the station wagon rear compartment, shoves the baby inside. In the back seat, Michael, 6, a mouth breather, looks up from concentrating on a violent rapping clacker toy to whine. I'm hungry.
Suck your thumb.
She slams the gate of the rear compartment. Interior station wagon day. As the car careens down the road, Michael looks over at the back seat, swirling the clacker in the baby's face. The infant slides wildly around the cargo area.
You make good money, Harry.
Exterior street in the front of the Wormwood house, day. A perfect controlled suburban neighborhood, kids riding bikes and playing ball in the street. Their station wagon tears down the block, Wormwood honking his horn and swerving as if trying to hit the playing children.
What's good of working so hard if we never spend the money?
Wormwood screeches to a halt at a diagonal so that his car is parked partially in his own driveway, partially in his neighbor's. He gets out.
We spend the money, believe me. I just bought you a baby.
They all get out and walk towards the house, but the camera stays with the car, making the point. They forgot the baby.
You didn't buy the baby. I had that baby.
Hey, at these prices, I bought the kid, okay?
They vanish inside the house. The camera moves in towards the rear window of the station wagon. The baby is all alone. After a moment, Michael returns, yanks open the back, grabs a bag, and grabs the bag as if he has been sent to grab a forgotten bag of groceries. Cut to interior Wormwood house night. Typical frantic evening. With hair dye foils in her hair, Mom is practicing Roomba moves with the dishes as she clears the table. Dad is talking on a cordless phone and picking at a scab on his chin. Michael is playing mini basketball in the corner with a plastic hoop. 2, yes!
As the baby grew, the Wormwoods barely noticed she existed, let alone that she was anything unusual.
Finally, we find baby Matilda, 9 months old, on the kitchen floor with a glass jar of baby food carrots, a steak knife, and an electric fan nearby in easy reach. The camera moves in closer. Matilda's tiny little finger dips into the jar of pureed carrots and moves towards the floor.
They named her.
Her little finger writes in pureed carrots the last A of Matilda. Immediately, a sponge wipes out her work.
Now look at what you've done, Matilda.
Mom swoops the baby up and plops her in the sink, a can of Drano conveniently nearby, then runs water to wash the child off, and leaves. Baby Matilda, left alone, looks around. Dissolved to interior, same kitchen, same sink, 2 years later, day. Matilda the toddler sits in the same sink, washes her own face, and climbs, somewhat perilously, clambering over a chopping cleaver, down out of the sink.
By the time she was 2, Matilda had learned what most people learn in their early 30s, how to take care of herself.
Matilda dries herself off with a towel. Interior Matilda's room, day. Matilda pulls on clean clothes, looks in the mirror. Cut to interior living room, morning.
Every morning, Matilda's older brother Michael went to school. Her father went to work selling used cars for inflated prices.
Mom sends Michael, now 10, off to school with a friendly pat on the butt and kisses Dad as he goes off in his checkered suit.
Make money.
Mom smears on some rouge and a novelty rhinestone-studded sun visor that spells out Reno.
And her mother took off to play bingo.
As she leaves, Mrs. Wormwood calls loudly to Matilda.
Soup's on the stove. Heat it up when you're hungry.
Interior Wormwood house, kitchen, day. Matilda, now 4, looks up at the stove. A can of soup, unopened, sits inside a saucepan.
Matilda was left alone.
Ignoring the soup, Matilda opens a box of pancake mix and dumps it into a mixing bowl. She pours milk into the bowl, splashing a little bit on the floor.
That was how she liked it.
Matilda contentedly eats a pile of wonderful-looking pancakes and browses a copy of Car and Van.
At 4 years of age, Matilda had read every magazine in the house.
Matilda pours through a stack of magazines: Bingo World, Bingo Bonanza, Small Business Tricks, Costa Rican Tax Hideaways. Interior living room, night. The glazed faces of Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood glow from the reflected TV light. They both seem ultra-real and slightly kitsch, like Dwayne Hanson sculptures. Little Matilda, in pajamas, approaches.
One day, Matilda worked up her courage and asked her father for a book.
Mr. Wormwood turns slowly from the TV.
A book? What do you want a book for?
To read?
To read? You want to read when you got a television sitting right there?
The opposite of the yuppie parent concerned about the TV. As he turns back to the TV with a superior sneer, he mutters,
Nothing you can get from a book that you can't get from the TV quick.
In an instant, he's numbed again. His wife, similarly mesmerized, puts a kernel of caramel corn into her mouth. Matilda looks from her father to her mother, gravely. Cut to exterior Wormwood house, morning. Dad leaves. Michael follows, carrying his hockey stick.
Next morning, after her mother left,
Mrs. Wormwood exits, calling over her shoulder.
This fish finger's in the microwave.
Interior hallway, Wormwood House, morning. Matilda stands on the telephone table, flipping through the phone book, which is at her chin height. Her little finger runs down the L page until she finds what she's looking for.
Matilda set off in search of a book.
Exterior, Wormwood House, morning. Matilda exits the house and heads the opposite way from her mother, father, and brother. We walk with her at her height. The trees are huge. Dogs are huge. Adults are huge. She's in the land of the giants. Exterior, city street, morning. Angle on Matilda standing at a crosswalk. There is no light and no stop sign. She looks out at the 20-mile-per-hour traffic, heaves a little sigh, and enters the crosswalk.
Although it is spectacularly unsafe for a 4-year-old child to walk alone in a city crossing busy streets.
Because of the camera angle and Matilda's size, we lose sight of her for a moment, from the moment she descends the curb. In what appears to be a murder on film, but is actually a carefully orchestrated ballet of cars and a little girl, the 4 lanes of traffic do not react at all to Matilda's crossing. Don't they see her? Has she been squashed? The camera searches for her vainly, frantically, until...
Here, as always, Matilda somehow survived.
Completely unperturbed, Matilda emerges on the other side, still walking at the same casual pace. She stops and looks up, her head tilting back further and further until she is looking straight up at...
And found herself at the public library.
POV, exterior, the library. A huge, old, beautiful, a cathedral. In the background, subtly, religious music begins. Interior, public library, day. Low angle. Matilda stares, wide-eyed, turning in a circle, books in every direction. With her simple dress and odd expression, she resembles a nun who has just witnessed a miracle. She moves towards the children's book section. Interior library, children's room, later. Matilda sits on an enormous leather chair like a giant's chair, reading a picture book. Lots of drawings, few words.
After that, Matilda spent all her days at the library, eventually attracting the attention of Miss Phelps.
Montage. Miss Phelps, a sweet and slightly befuddled older librarian, the kind that smells like powder, sits at the librarian's desk and watches with a very pleased expression as Matilda crosses in front of her, reverently carrying a stack of picture books. Matilda back in her chair. On the table beside the chair are 20 children's books. As the pile rises higher, the books are narrower and thicker. Fewer pictures, more text. Mrs. Phelps, still at her desk, does a slight double take. Matilda crossing again with a tall stack of chapter books. Matilda reading, close on her face, in rapt expression. Miss Phelps is out of the stacks, finding a book for another child, and she blinks, peers past the child to see Matilda weaving past, a stack of grown-up books teetering high over her head. Mrs. Phelps approaches a large table at which Matilda kneels on a chair. Spread out in front of her are practical non-fiction books, including a self-help text, legal documents for home use. Miss Phelps picks up legal documents and asks with gentle skepticism.
Excuse me, dear. Do you understand these books?
Well, sort of. I was actually looking for some good stories.
Let me help you.
At the children's stacks, Miss Phelps kneels creakily and starts to pull out Black Beauty, Treasure Island, The Secret Garden, and others.
I've read it. That was good. Oh, The Secret Garden. I've read that twice. That one too. These books are too easy.
Mrs. Phelps stares hard at Matilda and then wordlessly takes her by the hand and leads her into the adult fiction room.
Perhaps you're ready for Great Expectations or Jane Eyre.
As Mrs. Phelps starts taking down wonderful-looking leather-bound books, she asks, worried.
Maybe we better ask your mommy. Where is she, dear?
Playing bingo.
The last thing Miss Phelps expected to hear.
Does she drop you off here and pick you up?
I walk
By yourself? Where do you live?
the other side of High Street.
That's 10 blocks.
Matilda nods politely, and Mrs. Phelps pauses, struggling with an inner dilemma.
Would you like your very own library card so you can check out books and take them home? Then you wouldn't have to walk here every day. You can take out 10 at a time.
Matilda smiles. Cut to exterior public library in busy intersection day. A happy Matilda, her library card clutched in one small hand, exits the library, pulling a little red wagon piled with books. This time, when Matilda reaches the busy intersection, she waits for the cars to stop before she crosses. As this walk progresses, the books in her wagon grow thicker and pile up, stop animation. We see their titles per Dahl's reading list, page 18 in the Puffin paperback, and Matilda grows older.
So Matilda's strong young mind continued to grow, nurtured by all those authors who had sent their books out into the world like ships into the sea.
When this narration ends, Matilda is 6.5, the age she will be throughout the rest of the story. Matilda glances over the fence as she walks along. On the other side, a happy group of kindergarten children have formed a circle, holding hands in a game. Matilda looks lonely, apart.
These books bore Matilda a hopeful and comforting message.
Exterior Wormwood House, backyard. Matilda reads, leaning against a tree, her wagon at her side.
You are not alone.
Cut to interior Wormwood House, Matilda's room, night. Matilda is reading as her father hurries in with his habitual distracted look.
Any packages arrived today?
Matilda flicks a glance at him and shakes her head. Wormwood, annoyed, leaves, but trips over a book. He picks it up and looks at it as if it were a Martian artifact. Looks around the room. What is this? There are books all over.
Where did all this come from?
Library.
You've never set foot in a library. You're only 4 years old.
6.5.
4.
6.5.
4. If you were 6.5, you'd be in school.
I want to be in school. I told you I was supposed to start kindergarten in September. You didn't listen.
I didn't listen because you're only 4 years old.
6.
Wormwood grabs Matilda and yanks her out of the room. Interior Wormwood House, master suite, night. Into his bedroom, into his bathroom, where Zinnia Wormwood is doing a home dye job on her hair.
Dearest Pie, how old is Matilda?
4,
I'm 6, Mommy.
5 then.
I turned 6 in August.
Liar.
Checking his hairline in the mirror.
I want to go to school.
Mrs. Wormwood laughs, an absurd request.
Out of the question. Who'll be here to sign for my packages, stupid? We can't have valuable packages lying around the doorstep. Now go back to the TV.
Matilda watches her parents with big, sad eyes. Mr. Wormwood massages Miracle Grow hair tonic into his hair, and her mother squirts blue foam all over her foil-wrapped clumps of platinum hair, talking about Matilda as if she weren't there.
Sometimes I think there's something wrong with that girl.
Matilda moves away. Interior Wormwood House, hallway with POV into the living room. Out into the hall, where she sees into the living room, Michael, 12, still a mouth breather, stares goon-like at the TV exercise show, eating a jumbo bag of marshmallows, chewing with his mouth open. He fires a marshmallow at her and misses. Still clutching her book, Matilda goes into a room and slowly closes the door. Interior Wormwood House, Matilda's room, night. Matilda sits on the floor and opens her book. Her hair hides her face, but one teardrop and then another falls onto the pages.
Matilda longed for a friend, someone like the kind, courageous people in her books. It occurred to her that, like talking dragons and princesses with hair long enough to climb, such people might exist only in storybooks.
Cut to exterior Wormwood House, another day, evening. Mr. Wormwood dances up, twirling his hat on one finger. He clicks his heels like Jiminy Cricket as he goes up the step, throws open the door. Interior Wormwood House, evening. Matilda is reading, and Michael is watching a kung fu movie on the TV as Harry comes in. He walks up to Michael and announces,
I'm great. I'm incredible.
Mrs. Wormwood parades out with a bottle of beer and some chips.
Did we sell some cars today?
Did we? Look sharp, pencil and paper.
Michael blinks like a deer caught in headlights and digs frantically for a pencil and paper.
Honeydew, does this mean I can get that new TV?
He gives her a bemused and condescending glance and turns to Michael.
Son, one day soon you'll have to earn your own living.
A look of abject terror crosses Michael's face. This is a new thought. He fumbles with and drops his just found pencil. Wormwood takes out a grubby slip of paper to consult.
It's time you learned the family business. And the first car your brilliant father sold today cost $320 and sold for $11.58. The second cost $512 and sold for $2,269.
Wait, Dad, you're going too fast.
The third cost $68 and sold for $999. And the last one cost $1,100 and I sold it for 7,839 big American boffos. What was my profit for the day?
Dad, could you repeat the last
What was that, Matilda?
10,265.
Shut your fat face. Okay, I'll repeat it.
It's 10,265. Check it if you don't believe me.
Wormwood checks his paper. His face changes to rage.
You're a cheat. You saw my paper.
Did not?
Did too.
From across the room?
He gives her a long, hard stare.
Are you being smart with me? If you're being smart, young lady, you're going to be punished.
Punished for being smart?
For being a smart aleck.
He grabs her hair and holds it tight. Obviously, this hurts her.
When a person is bad, that person has to be taught a lesson.
Matilda blinks, an idea coming.
Person?
As Wormwood pulls Matilda to her room and slams the door,
Harry Wormwood, in his customary flabby-lipped, flap-tongued, foul-breathed, and brainless approach to rational discourse, had inadvertently given his daughter the first practical advice she could use.
interior Wormwood house, Matilda's bedroom, dawn. Matilda listens, hops out of bed, and hurries on tiptoes.
He meant to say, when a child is bad. Instead, he said, when a person is bad.
Interior Wormwood house, master suite, dawn. Matilda slips, goes past her parents. They're snoring loudly.
And thereby introduced into Matilda's mind a revolutionary idea.
Interior Wormwood house, master bathroom, dawn. Matilda climbs up to the sink, opens the medicine cabinet, and takes out the peroxide bleach bottle her mother uses and the Miracle Grow hair tonic her father uses.
That children should punish their parents. Only when they deserve it, of course.
Matilda pours out some of the tonic and adds some bleach to her father's tonic bottle. She keeps glancing at the sleeping parents. Will she get caught? Matilda sniffs the sink. Smells like hair tonic. She runs a little water, wipes out the bowl with a hand towel, which she drops into the hamper. The alarm clock goes off and loudly. With concern, but scarcely panic, Matilda has a preternatural calm. She twists the bottle tops back on. Her parents groan and roll over. Matilda climbs up to the sink and puts the bottles back on the shelf. Her father rises from the bed, and Matilda leaps off the sink, vanishing behind the door just as her father staggers into the bathroom. As he clears the door, Matilda sneaks out from behind him. Mrs. Wormwood's eyes are open. Matilda hits the floor and crawls quickly out of the room. Behind her, over the buzz of an electric razor.
Michael, come in here.
Interior Wormwood house, hall, early morning. Matilda crawls into the hall as Michael shuffers past her, dopey with sleep. He stops and looks at Matilda quizzically.
Practicing my doggy exercises.
Michael shoves her with his foot, mistreating the pet dog, and moves on. Interior parents' bathroom, night. Dad puts down his electric razor, trims his nose hairs by shoving a gizmo up his nostril.
All right, my boy. Today's the day I bring you to the shop, so look sharp.
Dad begins to rub his hair tonic into his hair.
Appearance is 9/10 of the law. People don't buy a car, they buy me, which is why I personally take such pride in my appearance.
As he massages his scalp, Wormwood's hair starts to whiten slightly. Hey, Dad, your hair,
Well-oiled hair, a clean shave, a snappy suit.
rubbing a little hair tonic into his eyebrows. Yeah, but Dad, I'm trying to tell you.
You don't tell me, young man. I tell you. Now run along and let me finish my toilet.
Michael exits, shrugging. Interior kitchen, morning. At the dinette table, Michael wolfs down a stack of Eggo waffles and eats bacon with his fingers. Mom mixes up a big pitcher of Tang. Matilda sits in quiet anticipation, watching the door. Wormwood enters and snaps his fingers at Michael.
Okay, Big Mike, today your training begins. Family business, heir to the throne, diddle the customer.
Matilda and Michael stare. Dad's hair has turned ghastly white.
What's for breakfast, Lovekins? What are you staring at?
Mrs. Wormwood turns around with the whacking big pitcher of bright-colored Tang, the breakfast of astronauts.
Here we are, my heartstrings. Pancakes and whoa!
She drops the huge pitcher. Wormwood rolls around and looks over his shoulder. Is there something behind him?
What are you trying to look like?
Wormwood in green check, and he quickly checks out the cut of his jacket.
Snickerdoodle, what did you do to your hair?
My hair?
He pats his hair all over and ducks into interior Wormwood house, the unused dining room, to check the glint mirror and screams.
Ah!
Wormwood bolts back to the kitchen. Interior Wormwood house, kitchen day. So why'd you diet, Dad?
Because he's your father. He's a complete moron.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't diet.
You use my peroxide.
I didn't touch your peroxide.
That's peroxide, you repulsive reptile.
Well, you put it on my side of the sink.
Grabbing the chrome toaster and finger combing desperately in the mirrored side, Matilda looks on gleefully.
You expect to sell cars like that?
I don't know. It looks distinguished.
He preens his head in different ways, trying to see himself in the best light. Failing that, he crams a dumb pork pie hat.
No one will even notice.
Cut to POV shot, exterior Wormwood house day. Mr. Wormwood exits with his hat pulled very low, a UPS package under one arm. Michael slinks around, embarrassed by his father's appearance. Matilda follows, carrying a large broom. Interior unmarked car parked on the street, day. In an unmarked car, 2 FBI men, hulking dark Neanderthal twins, are watching the Wormwood house. Their car is a tangle of clipboards, cameras, binoculars, walkie-talkies. As the Wormwoods walk past, they exchange raised eyebrows and mutter in excessively grave tones into a competing tape recorder.
9:17 a.m. Suspects exits the domicile.
I have 9:18.
9:17 is correct. Suspect in disguise.
Cut to exterior Wormwood Motors, day. Garish display, blinking signs, old like new, we'll take your money, in day-glow colors, revamped cars, painted intense primary colors. Mr. Wormwood drives onto the lot. As he sees his children get out, a slimy salesman, 22, greets them.
Hey, Mr. Wormwood, excellent hair!
Wormwood grunts and leads his children past a Mercedes, a Cadillac, an old T-Bird with signs, just arrived, she'll love you for this one, and hot from the West Coast. Wormwood double takes at the hot from the West Coast and quickly yanks the hot part of the sign down to the slimy salesman.
Be a little more discreet, huh, Roy?
He leads his children, interior Wormwood Motors office day, through the dreary little concrete block office and out the back door, Matilda still carrying the broom. Exterior Wormwood Motors junk heap garage day. Through a hole in the dilapidated wood fence in a large depressing garage where Luther, a large black man working without a mask, is spray painting a garish color over a rusted old junker. Wormwood takes off his hat proudly and indicates his domain.
Michael, one day all this will be yours.
Michael looks around, underwhelmed. This? Luther stares at Mr. Wormwood's white hair with a sly, superior grin.
You're working too hard, Mr. Wormwood.
Wormwood jams his hat back on and indicates to a car with $100 written in dust on the windshield.
You see this junker? Paid 100 clams for her.
Matilda begins sweeping the shop like a modern Cinderella.
She's gone 120,000 miles. Transmission's shot, bumpers are falling off. So what do I do with her?
He smirks, full of himself, and draws 2 more zeros on the dusty windshield, making it read $10,000.
I sell her.
Same garage minutes later. Matilda and Michael are holding onto a bumper of a junker as Mr. Wormwood waves a tube of super glue.
We ought to weld these on, but that takes time, equipment, money. So we use super glue. Ta-da!
They step back. The bumper holds. Won't it fall off?
Definitely.
Isn't that dangerous?
Not to me. Okay, transmission.
Same garage minutes later. Wormwood pours oil into an opening under the hood.
These gears are so worn the car will only drive backward. We can put in transmission oil, but that won't really help not until I add sawdust.
Pouring a coffee can of sawdust into the same funnel. Wait, sawdust?
Smart boy. The sawdust quiets the gears, makes it run sweet as a nut for a couple of miles.
But Daddy, that's cheating.
No one ever got rich being honest.
Matilda looks at her father, shocked. He turns back to Michael.
Now the transmission's quiet, but
He sticks his arm in the window and points to the dashboard.
she's still got all those miles on her.
He picks up an electric drill with a wire extender and grins. He turns it on for a brief burst of drill sound.
20 years ago, we could turn the numbers back by hand, but the feds like to test the ingenuity of the American businessman.
Wormwood leans under the hood and bumps his hat. Tries to get in position and can't. Leans back out and glances around. No one to see him but Luther. Wormwood takes his hat off and sets it down on a bench, right next to the super glue. Matilda stares at the glue.
Michael, watch the speedometer.
Michael looks through the window and Matilda joins him. Mr. Wormwood starts the drill.
2-directional drill. Run it backward and the mileage goes down.
Indeed. Michael and Matilda watch the numbers roll backwards. 119,000. 118,000. Matilda looks up at her father with sadness and astonishment.
You're a crook.
What?
Daddy, this is illegal.
Mr. Wormwood stares at her, his eyebrows jumping.
Do you make money, huh? Do you have a job?
Can't you sell good cars? Don't people need good cars?
Mr. Wormwood grabs Matilda and pulls her to him. He talks nose to nose, the drill bit unnervingly close to her face.
You listen to me, little wiseacre. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong. And there's nothing you can do about it.
He lets go of her and resumes running the drill. Matilda glowers at him, a fierce and dangerous look. Oh yeah? A horn honks. Wormwood bumps his head as he turns to see. POV, exterior Wormwood Autos, day. Mrs. Wormwood drives up in her station wagon, honking the horn, waving a fistful of cash. On the seat next to her sits a huge, cheap, stuffed rabbit as large as Mrs. Wormwood.
Oh, lost my play. I won! I hit the double bingo! Come on, everybody! I'm taking you out to Cafe Loritz.
Mr. Wormwood comes out from under the hood. Matilda is standing next to the bench and Mr. Wormwood's hat.
God, your hair looks awful.
He wedges his hat tightly down over his head.
I'll let you in.
They'll let me in. Of course they'll let me in.
As the family exits, the camera remains on, the super glue. Cut to exterior sidewalk near the Cafe Loritz restaurant, day. The family piles out of Mrs. Wormwood's station wagon near the fancy-looking restaurant. Zinnia leads the way, clicking along happily in her high heels, waving a fistful of cash.
It's nice to go out sometimes, isn't it? You never take us out.
I certainly do. We went to Flipper.
I don't remember any Flipper.
Giving Michael a quick spit bath with a Kleenex.
The fish place used to be right next to my shop.
That was before Matilda was born.
Exactly. Wasn't cheap either. $37.25. Would have been $38 if I tipped him.
He grabs his wife's bingo winnings, stuffs them into his pocket. He's the man. He will pay. He marches in ahead of his family. Interior Cafe Loritz, day. As the waiter escorts them to their table, Zinnia whispers.
Harry, take off your hat.
I can't.
Don't be vain. This is a nice place. You can't wear a hat inside.
The waiter sees Mrs. Wormwood by the dessert cart. Zinnia is acting dainty, putting on airs. The waiter gives Wormwood's hat a condescending glance. Zinnia jabs Wormwood. Take it off.
It's stuck to my head.
May I take your hat, sir?
Embarrassed, Mrs. Wormwood tries to snatch the hat off.
Nobody cares what your hat looks like, Harry.
The hat won't come off. Other diners watch. Zinnia, embarrassed, pulls harder and harder. Wormwood grips the table to keep from being lifted up.
Ow!
Zinnia hikes a foot up on the table and strains with all of her might. The table goes one way, Harry and Zinnia the other, dishes and water glasses and fancy desserts flying in all directions. A raspberry tart lands in front of Matilda, who has been calmly watching her parents. She picks it up and eats it. Cut to close-up on Wormwood's face.
I will not be a figure of ridicule.
The camera slowly pulls back.
I want respect and I want it now.
Harry is sitting in his pajamas on a high-backed chair on a slightly raised platform. A throne.
From now on, this family will do exactly what I say, exactly when I say it.
Behind him, Mrs. Wormwood is cavalierly hacking away at the hat with a pair of shears. The camera has pulled back far enough for us to reveal that we are, interior, the Wormwood house living room, early evening. Harry Wormwood has a foil TV dinner tray perched in his lap. Below him on the couch, his subjects, Michael and Matilda, have TV dinners perched on their laps.
Right now, we will eat dinner and watch TV.
He punches the remote and turns on the TV, a very silly game show. Note, we'll create our own, and if possible, recruit an unlikely famous actor for a 15-second cameo as the idiot host. Michael and Dad begin eating, and slowly over their faces settles a familiar pall of TV stupefaction. Matilda picks up a book and curls around it, oblivious to her mother and father's bickering.
I still don't see how you glued your hat on. I know you say you didn't, but it's obvious you did.
The hat shrunk and the fibers fused to my hair. That's science in here. Ah! I'm trying to eat here.
She grabs a napkin for his ear and notices for the first time. Matilda is reading, raptly, with a faint smile. Wormwood blinks, affronted. His face works with something like incredulity, only meaner. Harry shoves his TV dinner aside and moves in on her until his nose is just about an inch from her face. Finally, Matilda notices.
Hi, Dad.
Are you in this family?
Matilda hesitates. Is this a rhetorical question, or has her father been reading her mind?
Are you in this family?
Um,
Dinner time is family time.
Ripping the book from her hands and tossing it violently aside, he clamps his hands on Matilda's head and turns it towards the TV.
You are a wormwood, and it's time you start acting like one.
Wormwood grabs the remote control and turns the volume up. He keeps one hand like a vice grip on Matilda's head, forcing her to look at the TV. And so she watches. But there is something new, powerful, and eerie about her expression. Wormwood becomes engrossed in the show. On TV, the idiot game show host does something completely ridiculous. Michael, Harry, and Zinnia all laugh. The camera moves in on Matilda's face, and on the TV set, Matilda stares. A faint sound effect begins to resonate, very distant. Is she really watching this? Wormwood, still chuckling to himself, glances at Matilda with a nasty smirk. Intercut faster and faster, building intensity. We end with smashing close-ups, fire in Matilda's eyes as the faint sound becomes more articulated, a forest fire sound effect. The family laughs, the TV game show host laughing, Matilda glowering, building, and the TV explodes, shattering into a gazillion shards of glass and Japanese plastic, and the sound effect. Stunned silence. Matilda blinks. The rest of the family sits there, dazed and bewildered.
wow.
Bummer. There's a large smoking hole where the screen used to be. Zinnia blinks, regains herself enough to glare at her husband.
Told you that set was cheap.
It's not a cheap set, it's a stolen set. There's a difference.
Wormwood picks his way through the haze of smoke and pokes at the shattered TV console. Matilda watches him with a puzzled expression. What really happened?
Was it magic or coincidence? It is said we humans use only a tiny portion of our brains. Matilda might never have come to know her own great strength of mind, were it not for the events which began on the very next day.
Cut to exterior Wormwood Motors the next day. Matilda, dressed now in a dirty mechanic clothes with a little patch that says Wormwood Motors, Matilda, sits on the concrete floor, futilely scrubbing an oil stain which has been there for 20 years. Real Cinderella work. She glances towards her father. POV, exterior Wormwood Motors, near the car's day. Mr. Wormwood applies a garish price tag to the windshield of an old junker he and his children worked on, switches some other price tags around, raising prices, and wow, is that a bad haircut. A bushy sprout of white hair with skinned and bristling sides, and clumps of leather hat bands stuck on randomly. Wormwood's big ears look marooned. Angle on Matilda. Matilda hears the thud of heavy footsteps and her little pail of water vibrates.
I want a car!
Curious, Matilda looks up, but the window in front of her is covered with a lattice work of junk, spare car parts, tools, etc. All she can see is the wide swath of the Trunchbull's dress and her father.
Well then, you come to the right joint. Come in, come in.
Wormwood dances forward, light of foot, to greet his customer.
Agatha Trunchbull, headmistress of Crunchbull Primary School.
Note, throughout the scene, we never see more than brief glimpses of, or parts of the Trunchbull. Thick fingers, a bull neck. On the other hand, we almost always see all of Harry. At this moment, it is clear that the Trunchbull has captured Harry's hand and will not easily relinquish her captive.
Harry Wormwood, really good to meet you. Would you mind this way, please?
Trunchbull releases his hand so she can enter his private office, which resembles a concrete bunker. Matilda slides towards the outside of the building so she can peek into the office window. The Trunchbull is now sitting with her back to the window. All Matilda can see is one of her huge arms rippling with muscles.
I need a car. Inexpensive but reliable. Can you service me?
Wormwood raises an eyebrow. A horrifying innuendo.
In a manner of speaking, yes. A car just came onto my lot.
I warn you, sir. I want a tight car because I run a tight ship.
I understand completely.
Children. Mistakes they all are. Glad I never was one. Anyway, my school's a motto of discipline. No violence, no learning. That's my motto.
Wormwood glances towards the window where he sees Matilda listening. He rises and walks towards her.
No violence, no learning. Let's do some business.
Cut to exterior Wormwood Motors day. Matilda looks up from her scrubbing as the Trunchbull, whose face we still cannot see, drives away in the junker. Wormwood waves after her and pulls a wad of cash from his pocket. He counts it contentedly as he saunters to Matilda.
You're going to school.
I am?
First thing in the morning.
Matilda throws her arm around her father's leg gratefully.
Oh, Daddy, thank you.
Yeah. You'll get a real education at this place.
Cut to interior Matilda's room, Wormwood House morning. Matilda, excited, brushes her hair and makes sure her school sweater is buttoned tightly. She grins at herself in the mirror, then picks up her new school notebook and dashes out the door. Cut to exterior Crunchum Hall Primary School day. Mr. Wormwood drops Matilda off at the front of Crunchum Hall Primary School. Stark pre-war brick buildings, children mill playing jump rope and freeze tag. Wormwood's wheels scratch off. You're on your own, kid. Matilda enters the playground eagerly and wide-eyed.
Matilda had always wanted to go to school, both because she liked to learn and because she wanted to escape her family. No matter how awful a school might be, it couldn't be worse than...
Like a gunshot, a whip cracks nearby. Matilda turns around and sees, POV, the Trunchbull stalking the yard. For the first time, we really see the Trunchbull. Huge, hugely muscled with a cruel, hammer-jawed face. Her brow is furrowed, her eyes are slits, her gait is predatory. She cracks the whip again. Wail as matador. The other children move away from her with studied slowness, not wanting to attract her attention. Matilda's eyes widen. She backs up warily, moving towards the open space between the buildings. The opening is as wide as a board, just Matilda's height. She glances once more to the enraged Trunchbull and squeezes into the opening. Pitch black.
Oh,
Sorry.
2 girls in this tiny space?
it's okay. It's better than being out there.
Gradually, we perceive 2 pairs of eyes in the darkness.
Who is that?
Principal, Miss Trunch.
The Trunchbull cracks her whip again, loudly, as children scatter like bugs across the playground.
Holy moly.
Hortensia, a 6th grader with a boil on her nose, leans against the side of the building next to their hiding place.
Where's better skedaddle?
Silence. Matilda and Lavender say nothing.
Not kidding. Trunchbull likes to flick that whip and tries to see who's hiding.
Lavender and Matilda bolt out. They glance at each other shyly.
And Matilda,
Lavender.
she doesn't really hit children with the whip, does she?
Yeah, it's mostly for scare. What she does is worse.
Matilda's eyes widen.
Like yesterday, in the 2nd grade, the Trunchbull always visit the classroom to show a teacher a thing or two about handling kids.
Interior 2nd grade classroom day. The scene Hortensia describes, wildly exaggerated by Matilda's imagination.
And Julius Rotwinkle ate 2 M&Ms during her lesson.
Julius, 7, is incredibly sly about it. Looks like he's just rubbing his nose.
And she caught him?
Of course.
The Trunchbull strolls over, her back to Julius, then whirls, grabbing his mouth, and squeezes it to reveal the M&Ms. The rest of the class recoils in horror. The Trunchbull hoists Julius up by one arm and holds him over her head and rears back. The teacher runs frantically to the window and throws it open, just in time. Julius goes sailing out of the open window.
Was he Julius okay?
Back to the yard.
You lived, if that's what you mean.
The Trunchbull used to throw the shot put in the Olympics, so
So she does this all the time?
Better than being put in the chokey.
Chokey?
Again, everything's exaggerated by the children's imaginations. Interior, the Trunchbull's office day. A medieval torture chamber filled with terrifying apparatuses, spiderwebs, chains, Matilda vividly sees.
It's a tall, narrow cupboard. You have to stand in it, and the walls have broken glass and nails sticking out.
Chambering Matilda's imagination sprouts nails and glass.
She puts kids in there?
Hortensia herself is shoved inside by Miss Trunchbull.
I've been in twice.
The door to the chokey slowly closes on Hortensia. The Trunchbull starts singing a show tune from Gypsy.
I am swell. I am great. I've got the whole world on my plate.
Back to the yard.
But didn't you tell your parents? Didn't they?
They didn't believe me. I mean, would your parents believe it?
Matilda knows the answer to that. At that moment, screams. They all turn to see the Trunchbull on the warpath. Oh my God, she's coming right at them. The Trunchbull stops in front of Matilda and smiles maliciously.
Ah, fresh meat.
Matilda's eyes widen in terror. But before our heroine can muster an answer, the Trunchbull shoves Matilda out of the way and moves on to her target prey. A small girl, Amanda Thripp, with precious blonde pigtails.
Amanda?
yes, Miss Trunchbull.
What are those hanging down by your ears?
You mean my pigtails?
Are you a pig, Amanda?
My mommy thinks they're sweet.
Your mommy is a twit! And you are the disgusting little piglet.
Shot put.
What?
Definitely.
You chop those things off before school tomorrow, or I'll...
Bye.
What did you say? I'll teach you to me!
She lifts Amanda by her pigtails and whirls her around her head. Matilda watches, aghast. Amanda's going faster and faster, a blur. She flies up into the sky like a rocket.
Oh, good Lord. Yes, and an excellent Roy. You think she'll hit the daisies? Petunias.
In the distance, poor Amanda Thripp finally lands in daisies.
Very good, ma'am. Definite 10.
You're not sucking up to me, are you, Nosehair?
The bell rings.
Telling the truth, Miss T. That was an outstanding toss.
Yes, I was focused. I felt loose. Get the class before I throw you all that choking!
The children run into the main building. The Trunchbull saunters behind. Across the field, Amanda Thripp staggers to her feet like a drunk person, apparently unharmed. Approaching the main building, running beside Lavender, Matilda has a horrible thought.
Lavender, what's my teacher like?
Cut to interior Mrs. Honey's classroom day. Miss Honey stands in front of the class. Her face, her voice, her Madonna-like presence is simple, clear, and pleasing.
Children, we have a new student today, Matilda Wormwood. Now, you all remember how scary it was on the very first day of school, so be especially nice to Matilda and make her feel welcome.
Yes, Miss Honey.
Yes, Miss Honey.
Lavender takes Matilda's hand and squeezes it with a smile.
Miss Honey was a wonderful teacher and a friend to everyone, but she had a deep, dark secret. Though it caused her great pain, she did not let it interfere with her teaching.
Matilda, you come on a very good day, because we're going to review what we've learned so far. Please don't be ashamed if you don't understand any of this. You're brand new, but if you do know any answers, just raise your hand. Now, most of you know how to count by twos. Is there anyone who doesn't?
Charlie, a slow-looking but endearing boy with thick glasses, raises his hand. He smiles gratefully when...
I know, Charlie. We'll work on it together. And you, Matilda, can you count by twos?
Yes, Miss Honey.
Could you recite it for us?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I like to double things too. 2 times 12 is 24, and 2 times 24 is 48. 2 times 48 is 96. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
Miss Honey blinks. She's beginning to get a curious sensation, as if she's falling down a very deep hole.
Matilda, can you multiply?
Yes, Miss Honey.
How high can you multiply?
I don't know. I like 13. 13 times stuff. That's fun.
13 times 7.
91. No, I mean, more like 13 times 300 and something.
Miss Honey blinks, trying to adjust to this unusual child.
379.
Matilda nods, pleased with the question. Thanks.
4927.
Miss Honey does her own hasty calculation with pen and paper and looks up with an odd expression. A beat.
Can you read, Matilda?
I love to read.
What sort of books? The Bernstein Bears or...
Oh, yes, those books are delightful.
Miss Honey seems relieved. The child's not a complete genius.
But lately I've been reading Dahl's Chickens, Charles Dickens. I could read him every day.
Miss Honey is staring at Matilda with a mixture of joy and spooked amazement.
So could I. Now, please take out your workbooks and begin at page 82. Matilda, you may begin anywhere you like. I'll be right back for a moment.
Miss Honey leaves the room. Interior Crunchum Hall, Primary School Hall. And into the hallway, the door closes behind her and she leans against the wall. Miss Honey glances inside the classroom, watches Matilda quite seriously attacking her workbook. Miss Honey turns and looks down the hall. She summons her courage to walk down to the door marked Headmistress. Interior, the Trunchbull's office day. The Trunchbull is waving a dart and singing scales.
La 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 la.
And throws a second dart. A knock at the door. The back of the door is a corkboard plastered with school photos of children, which have been punctured hundreds of times by dart holes.
La 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 la.
Miss Honey enters and a dart whizzes by her head. The Trunchbull waves her dart playfully.
Come in, whoever you are.
Once again, the Trunchbull waves her dart playfully.
Almost got you. Good to see you, Jenny. Good. Time for one of our little hearts-to-hearts.
Actually...
Remember the time I broke your arm? But enough small talk. Get to the point.
Behind her, the chokey stands open. The nails are long and the glass is very sharp. Over the door hangs a lucky horseshoe.
It's about the new student in my class, Miss Trunchbull, Matilda Wormwood.
Yes, her father says she's a real wart.
A what?
Cumbuscle. A blister, a festering pustule, a malignant ooze.
Matilda Wormwood is a genius.
The gangster.
The child is 6 years old and she can multiply large sums in her head.
So can the calculator.
Wonk goes a dart into a child's picture.
Miss Trunchbull, Matilda can read grown-up books.
Anyone can learn to read, Miss Honey. What are you driving at?
In what can only be described as a menacing act, Mrs. Trunchbull sips from a glass of water.
I think Matilda might be happier in an older, more advanced class.
I knew it. You're trying to foist her up. Yes, on one of the other teachers. Typical slothful cowardice. If you can't handle the little viper, then I'll lock her in a chokey. Get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Beaten, Miss Honey heads for the door.
One day, Jen, you'll see that everything I do is for your own good, and the good of those precious little children.
Miss Honey turns politely at the door. Miss Trunchbull smiles and postures in a muscle man pose.
I am the great.
Cut to interior Cruncham Hall Primary School hallway day. Miss Honey walks down the hall trying to control her tears. Then she squares herself determined and detours to a door marked supplies. She opens the cabinet and runs her hand down the shelf and stops at a stack of books marked 6th grade textbooks. Interior Mrs. Honey's classroom day. Her kindergartners are working industrially. Miss Honey, her arms full of books, stops by Matilda's desk and puts down an armload of 6th grade workbook and whispers,
Dear, why don't you try these instead?
Cut to exterior Wormwood House day. Matilda comes up the street happily, carrying her new school books. She glances at the FBI men parked outside. They meet her gaze, then slowly raise Go magazines to cover their faces. Interior Wormwood House day. Matilda comes up happily, passing a tall stack of precariously balanced UPS packages. Her mother's on the phone, chatting in a constant stream of conversation as she pedicures her feet.
He's just saying he has a tumor to get back to Tiffany. Before, when she had that thing with Valerie's brother, how was school, dear? You're kidding. I love that show.
Matilda launches in excitedly.
It was great. My teacher lets me do 6th grade work. Look, algebra and geography.
Why do you lie like this? Can't you see I'm on the phone? What else was she supposed to do? The baby wasn't his. No way. They gotta be implants.
I'm not lying. Look, I have. These books.
If if you steal things, Matilda, they're gonna kick you out. You look great. She waxes it. Positive.
Matilda watches her mother talk, knowing it's futile.
Principal's insane. She threw a girl over the fence by her hair.
Mrs. Wormwood rolls her eyes, presses the heel of her hand over her ear to block Matilda out, and keeps talking.
On Oprah. Uh-huh. Put it on a card.
Matilda tries again, poignantly, saying this aloud just because it feels good to say.
I have the most wonderful teacher.
Mrs. Wormwood couldn't have understood the depths of this remark, even if she'd been listening. Matilda goes to her room. Cut to interior Wormwood House living room later. Matilda is reading her TV dinner in front of her. Zinnia is watching a brand new widescreen TV. Pro wrestling. The sounds of physical exertion are loud, almost immediate. And in fact, in the other corner, Michael and Mr. Wormwood are acting out the wrestling match. Wormwood has Michael in a bizarre and intimate grip, his fingers partially jammed up Michael's nose as he simultaneously announces the match a few seconds behind the TV announcer.
Killer is hurt. He's hurt, ladies and gentlemen. He may not survive this terrible.
The doorbell rings.
Saved by the bell.
But the TV match is still on. They realize it wasn't the TV. The Wormwoods look back towards the door with bewilderment, as if the bell has never rung before. Mr. Wormwood glances at his watch.
Packages at this hour?
He goes to answer. Interior, exterior, Wormwood House, front door, night. Miss Honey stands at the door. Wormwood gives her the briefest glance.
We don't want any.
He slams the door on his own fingers. The door bounces back open, revealing revealing Wormwood hopping around the room, yelping in agony. Mrs. Honey steps in.
Mr. Wormwood, are you all right? I'm Jennifer Honey, Matilda's teacher.
What's she done now? Go to your room.
She hasn't done anything.
Then why are you bothering us? This is our favorite show.
Mrs. Honey has to take a little breath. She's not accustomed to standing up to people, but in this case, she feels compelled.
Mrs. Wormwood, I came here because I think this is very important, much more important than any TV show. I wanted to discuss your daughter's future.
Mrs. Wormwood turns up the volume. Miss Honey spots Matilda hiding in the hallway, listening. Miss Honey, fighting her natural gentleness, raises her voice to be heard over the TV.
I'm certain you're aware by now that Matilda has a brilliant mind.
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, Mikey, get me a beer.
Michael digs into a large plastic cooler near the TV set.
Her math skills are extraordinary, and she's reading material.
You want one?
No thanks. Material I didn't see until my second year of college.
Ooh, college.
Wormwood noisily opens his beer, spattering Mrs. Honey.
With private instructions, she could be ready for college in only a few years.
Look, Mrs. Shit. You think a girl gets anywhere acting intelligent? Just look at you and look at me.
Mrs. Wormwood lifts her ample chest, preening.
You chose books. I chose looks.
Miss Honey's eyes widen. Mrs. Wormwood is hardly a beauty.
I got a nice house, great husband, and you're slaving away teaching snot-nosed children their ABCs, and you want Matilda to go to college?
I never went to college. I don't know anybody who did. Bunch of Koreans and hippies and cesspool salesmen.
Let's not sneer at education, Mr. Wormwood. If you became ill, your doctor would be a college graduate, or suppose you sued for selling a faulty car. The lawyer who defended you.
What car? Sued by who? Who have you been talking to?
Miss Honey stops trying and just stares at the Wormwoods.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come.
We have to sue you for interrupting our show.
Miss Honey nods and heads for the door. As she looks back one last time, she sees interior Wormwood house, hallway to the bedrooms, night. Matilda is eavesdropping. She and Miss Honey exchange a long, poignant look, and Miss Honey goes. Cut to interior Miss Honey's classroom, day. Happy but controlled chaos. Miss Honey's class is building a water system, fitting sections of PVC pipe together, devising a path for pipes to move water through a water wheel. In the midst of this busy activity, Matilda is engrossed in measuring the water wheel, making calculations.
Every revolution moves 12 cubic centimeters of water.
Miss Honey is watching Matilda with particular pride.
And there are 238 revolutions per hour. So how many liters are moved in a day?
Her mind whirs happily towards the answer until she notices Miss Honey watching her. She stops her calculation, shyly slips her hand over Miss Honey's, and squeezes.
Thank you.
For everything. For coming to her house, for noticing her. Miss Honey squeezes back, but her expression has changed to something more thoughtful. She leans down and speaks softly.
Matilda, if you ever need a friend, grown up, you can always come to me.
Matilda looks up at her with those great big eyes.
I will do that.
A sweet and solemn vow has been exchanged. Suddenly, the mood is broken by a voice booming over the loudspeaker.
Hop 2! Hippity hop! The entire school will go to the assembly room immediately. No excuses!
The children instantly stop their work and scramble to form a single file line. Interior Trunchbull Primary School hallway, day. Out of the classroom, children stream silently in perfect lines. Looks like a 50s film about the proletariat communist masses. Interior school assembly room, day. The last of 250 children take their seats. Miss Trunchbull stands on a stage glaring at the assembly. The stage is bare, except for a small table and chair. Matilda whispers to Lavender.
What's up?
Lavender shrugs. Beats me. Miss Trunchbull signals, and from offstage, a haggard old woman out of Dickens shuffles out carrying a cardboard box. She sets the box down like a lonely symbol in the middle of the table. Absurdist theater. Miss Trunchbull smiles grimly at the assembly. Her voice is low, a menacing whisper on absolute authority.
Bruce Bogtrotter.
There's a slight stir among the assembled children, and no one responds.
Will little Brucey come up here?
Bruce Bogtrotter, 10, stands, terrified, all eyes on him. Alarmed, Lavender clutches Matilda's arm and whispers.
He's my cousin.
Young Bruce climbs warily onto the platform. He is a stout boy, but he is beginning to perspire lightly. What can Miss Trunchbull have in mind? Miss Trunchbull approaches him, and Bruce shuffles backwards.
This boy, Trotter, is a member of the Mafia.
Stunned silence. Bruce's eyes pop open.
The mob. The Cosa Nostra. He's a thug, a thief, a crack addict. Bess.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Cake! It's cake! You snuck like a serpent into my school kitchen. Do you deny it?
On Bogtrotter's face, a tortured moment. To be honest or not?
In every life, there comes a moment when you can stand up against the forces of tyranny or run away like an ostrich with diarrhea.
Oh my God. Admit it. So you do it.
For Bruce Bogtrotter, this was that moment. Should he tell the truth or play it smart?
Tell me, did it taste scrumptious?
Bruce looks up, way up at the towering Trunchbull. To be honest, my mom makes a better one. The children of the assembly room gasp. The Trunchbull sways triumphantly and leans in to say softly,
Oh, she does she? How can you be sure unless you have another piece? Do you know what Cook did? Cookie baked a whole new cake.
The Trunchbull lifts the box up, and under it, on the table, is a humongous chocolate cake, enough to feed 20.
Sit down. Have a slice.
She places her hand on top of his head and shoves Bruce down into the chair, lifting her knife menacingly. Another gasp from the children. She gonna stab him? Lavender clutches Matilda. The Trunchbull slices into the cake. She cuts off a huge piece and slaps it down in front of Bruce, right on the bare table. Bruce looks at it warily. Is it poison? Lavender whispers, half aloud. Potter looks up at the Trunchbull politely. I don't want any, thank you.
Yes, you do. It's delicious. Do it. No.
A ripple runs through the row where Matilda and Lavender sit. It's poisoned. There's broken glass in it, Lavender whispers. With the Trunchbull's sinewy hand gripping his neck, Bruce picks up the fork and takes a bite of the chocolate cake. From the assembled children, a faint, fatalistic groan. Bruce smiles. I mean, this is good. He takes another bite, and another. Quickly devours the slice. On the assembly, the children murmur, what's going on? The Trunchbull wouldn't just give him some cake just to eat.
Go on. Another slice.
No,
Eat it.
The Trunchbull seizes Bruce by the hair and positions his face over the giant cake.
You want a cake? You've got it. You will not leave the platform until you have consumed the entire confection. That clear?
Bruce looks up at her, looks out at the groaning children, at the cake, back at the Trunchbull, and he begins to eat. A series of dissolves as Bruce attacks the cake, slice after slice after slice. Half the cake gone. Lavender and Matilda watch with horrible fascination.
Oh, sneezing. Poor Bruce.
The Trunchbull looks on, sipping imperiously from a glass of water. 3/4 of the cake is eaten. Children strain for a better look. This is incredible. Amanda Thripp is praying. Lavender whispers to Matilda with horror and disgust.
He's going to puke. I can't look. Is he going to puke?
Bruce's pace is slowing, but he keeps on with dogged determination, his mouth bulging like a hamster's. Children whisper, the news traveling down each row.
He's gonna blow lunch. Gross. Puke. Go right in her face. Ralph, blow chunks.
Bruce's jaws work. He's trying to swallow, but he gags. Trunchbull glaring at him, daring him to swallow. In the assembly, the children are silently cheering Bruce on, and a voice escapes and rings out.
You can do it, Brucey!
The Trunchbull whirls and glares at the assembly. As the incipient mutiny quiets, she turns slowly back to Bruce, who has stopped eating and is staring out at the assembly. He smiles. Slowly, he stands, weaving dizzily like a confirmed alcoholic. The crowd quiets. Is he about to pass out? No. Instead, he points into the audience as if to thank them and bows drunkenly. The Trunchbull, completely baffled by his weird behavior, slaps him on the back of the head. He looks up at her defiantly and turns back to the cake. Digging in with both hands, he stuffs huge pieces into his mouth, and the Trunchbull moves forward, towering and intimidating, hoping her presence will throw him off of his bite. No such luck. The audience starts to cheer again, subtly. Only 2 slices remain. Bruce gobbles faster and faster, choking down the gooey chocolate mass. Finally, he puts his face down right in the cake and eats it like a dog gobbling kibble. As the Trunchbull watches in horror, the children openly cheer.
Go, Bruce!
Go, Bruce!
3 bites left. 2. 1. Bruce stands in triumph, face smeared, jaws still chewing massively. He picks up the cake plate, gives it a final swipe with his tongue. All done. The assembly room erupts in cheering, clapping, yelling. The children are on their feet.
Good work, Brewster! You did it!
Way to go!
The Trunchbull yanks the cake plate out of his hands, raises it up over her head, and brings it crashing down on little Brucey's skull. Glass flies everywhere. Stunned silence. Bruce smiles again, too besotted by cake to feel any other sensation. The other children resume their cheering. Whack. The Trunchbull hits the table with her riding crop. Whack, whack, whack. The audience goes deathly quiet, sensing something awful.
The entire assembly will stay 5 hours after school and copy the dictionary. Any children who object will go to their choking.
Cut to exterior Wormwood house, night. The street lamps are on when the school bus drops Matilda at the corner. She runs towards the house, passing the same FBI car that has been sitting in front of the house the entire movie. Matilda pauses to peek into the car. The FBI twins are watching an episode of The FBI on the dashboard TV, and then hurries towards the side door. Interior Wormwood house, kitchen, night. She enters, encountering her father's glowering face. He's opening UPS packages with a carton boy's razor knife.
Young lady, where were you?
Miss Trunchbull kept us late because the boy ate some chocolate cake.
Wormwood stares at her in disgusting disbelief.
That is the worst lie I've ever heard.
I can hardly believe she's your daughter, Harry.
Do you see these? They were piled outside for the world to see because you weren't here to bring them in. Am I talking to a wall? Do I make myself clear?
I don't think it's fair, Bumpkin.
Wormwood turns, dismayed that his wife is apparently supporting Matilda. Has she lost her mind? Wormwood's plump lower lip trembles in a pout.
You get all this stuff from catalogs, and I never get anything.
It isn't catalogs, it's car parts, sweetness. It's business.
If they're car parts, how come you don't have to send them to the office?
Because the cops might be watching in the office.
Matilda is making herself a bread and butter sandwich.
Cops are watching the house.
What?
They're parked outside right now.
Wormwood stares at her, then yanks open the kitchen door.
Where?
Mrs. Wormwood peers out, then breaks into laughter.
Oh, come on. Those are speedboat salesmen. Really nice guys. Yeah, they...
Speedboats? There's no lake around here.
Yes, but some people go away on the weekend. Some people have fun.
And some people are cops.
They are not cops.
Are too.
Not. I ought to know if cops are watching the house.
That's right, you should.
He stares out again, with the faintest flicker of worry, then dismisses it by giving Matilda a little boot.
You lying little earwig.
Cut to happy music intro to exterior Field and Stream day. Matilda, Lavender, and Bruce Bogtrotter skip through a field of high grass. They carry nets, sticks, jars, and other hunting paraphernalia.
It's said that all great ideas come from hard work and careful planning. Such things have their place. The truth is that luck almost always plays a part. So it was with the newt.
Three compatriots dash down a hill towards a small creek, reveling in their freedom. It's the first time we've seen Matilda behave completely and exuberantly like a small child.
On this Sunday afternoon, Matilda, Lavender, and Lavender's cousin Bruce went forth in search of copperheads, sea monsters, and cottonmouths, or anything else they might catch in a jar.
The three children hurtled into the creek, flailing their nets and shouting with abandon, and presumably scaring away any nearby forms of wildlife. She churns off in pursuit of something. The others join in, all shouting, "A bug! A bug!" They swing their nets wildly, frothing the surface of the water. Their voices join in a chorus of shrieks and shouts. Lavender raises her net above the water and recoils in alarm. There's something in there. As the others circle around to see, the camera moves in to Lavender's alarmed but curious face.
Oh, what is it?
Cut to exterior Crunchbull Hall Primary School morning. Lavender is holding a small glass jar with holes punctured in the metal top. Matilda and Bruce and the other children surround her with the school steps, overlapping dialogue.
It's a salamander.
No, it's a chameleon.
It's a chameleon.
Oh, look at the
No,
jar.
it's changed color. It's totally clear. It would turn invisible.
Matilda and Bruce Bogtrotter are paging through a large science textbook, and Matilda finds the answer first.
It's a newt. Any of the small semi-aquatic salamanders from the genus Therisis.
Bruce Bogtrotter picks it up. Some are brightly colored and secrete irritating substances. Suddenly, as if responding to some psychic signal we don't perceive, the children stop talking. Lavender slips the newt jar into her pocket. They disperse. As they do, we see the Trunchbull. Her face is red and sweaty, puffed out like a blowfish. She is pushing her new car into the school's parking lot. The car's engine is off, and the car continues to make weird clanging noises. Just as she is about to blow her stack, she steps in dog shit. The Trunchbull looks up in rage and sees Matilda. Cut to interior Crunchbull Hall Primary School day. Miss Trunchbull hauls Matilda by the hair down the hall. Matilda's in pain but doesn't make a sound. Her expression is the same as when her dad mistreats her. Fast dialogue.
Teach you a lesson.
What lesson?
Your father's a hoodlum, and you're a hoodlum too.
Interior Miss Trunchbull's office day. Miss Trunchbull drags Matilda toward the chokey.
I'm nothing like my father.
You're his spitting image.
Spittle flying in punctuation. She shoves Matilda into the chokey and slams the door, locks it thoroughly.
The apple never rots far from the tree.
The camera pulls back. The Trunchbull's footsteps echo away. Silence. The school bell rings. Interior Miss Honey's classroom, morning. The class is scurrying frantically to clean up its desk, sharpen pencils, etc. Miss Honey is quickly unbraiding a little girl's pigtails. They're taking no chances because...
Children, Miss Trunchbull teaches our class today, so we must all...
Lavender rushes into the door, up to Miss Honey. Before she can speak, Miss Honey, who is a little frantic, says,
Lavender, will you fetch Miss Trunchbull water, please?
Oh, Miss Honey.
Quickly.
Lavender heads for the sink. Her newt jar bulges visibly in the pocket of her dress.
Remember, don't speak unless she speaks to you. Don't laugh or smile or even breathe loudly.
Don't breathe at all.
A joke. Miss Honey turns, sees Trunchbull casually twirling a baseball bat like a baton. Children scurry to their seats. Miss Honey surveys the class and sees Matilda's chair is empty. She turns to Lavender and mouths silently, "Where's Matilda?" Lavender mouths with a "I was trying to tell you" attitude, "In the chokey," putting her hands around her own neck. Choke-y. Miss Honey registers alarm and hurries out of the room. Interior corridors on the way to Miss Trunchbull's office day. Miss Honey runs faster and faster, more and more anxious. Interior Miss Trunchbull's office day. Miss Honey flies through the door and rushes to the chokey. Locks, many locks, and bars, like the inside of a New York City apartment. Frustrated, hurrying, Miss Honey undoes them all. The door swings open and Matilda throws herself into Miss Honey's arms. For one long, sweet moment, the child and her teacher embrace. Interior Miss Honey's classroom day. Miss Trunchbull has a freckled boy held up by the ankles and is holding him upside down as she berates Miss Honey's class.
I've never seen such a scrofulous collection of scrubs in my entire career.
When Miss Honey shepherds Matilda back into the room, the children stare, amazed. There's complete silence until...
Miss Honey, this is the most interesting thing you've ever done. Congratulations.
She drops the freckled boy on his head, casually. Lavender sets a water pitcher in front of Miss Trunchbull. The newt jar no longer bulges in her dress pocket.
Thank you, you squirming rummabout. Who are you?
Nigel.
Nigel what?
Nigel Hicks.
Nigel Hicks what?
A tiny, puzzled beat.
That's it. Unless you want my middle name.
I don't want your middle name, you festering wart. I want my name.
Your name is Miss Trunchbull.
I know that! I want you to say it.
Miss Trunchbull?
I want you to say it as a form of politeness when you speak to me.
Oh.
Oh, what?
A beat. He's so terrified and confused, now he can't even speak.
Oh, what?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Miss Trunchbull glares at him with tremendous savagery. Poor Nigel lowers his eyes. He's beaten. He whirls on Liza, a chubby girl with freckles.
Can you spell? Can you spell?
Miss Honey taught us to spell a long word yesterday. Difficulty?
There's not a kindergarten in the world that can spell difficulty. You bleeding nose crust.
Liza gives a signal, and...
D
I
F
F
I
C
U L
L
T Y.
Y. Miss Trunchbull doesn't like this. Liza adds, helpfully.
Miss Honey taught us with a poem.
With a poem?
The class recites on Liza's signal.
Mrs.
D, Mrs. I, Mrs. F, I, Mrs. C, Mrs. U, Mrs. L, T, Y.
Mrs. D, Mrs. I, why are these women married? You're supposed to teach spelling, not poetry.
Miss Honey shrinks, cowed. Miss Trunchbull rolls on poor, slow Charles, the endearing boy who was bad at math.
What's 2 times 7?
16.
The Trunchbull grabs him by his ears.
18. It's 18.
Miss Trunchbull lifts him up into the air by his ears.
15? No, 21. It's 21.
Please don't throw him, Miss Trunchbull.
Throw him? I wouldn't throw him, Miss Honey. Let the punishment suit the crime. If his ears don't work, I'll...
Charles's eyes bulge. The entire classroom watches in horror. Charles's ears seem to be stretching slightly. Miss Trunchbull sees the children's expression and drops Charles.
Everyone thinks I'm so horrible. I'm not. I'm just misunderstood. And I happen to be someone who absolutely detests small children.
She pours some water into her glass and guzzles it. She puts the glass down. Some children snicker. Trunchbull looks at them, outraged. With quiet control...
What is it?
A few more children giggle.
Well, it's out. I like a joke as well as the next fat person.
Silence. Some kids have their hands gripped over their mouths to keep from laughing. They stare at the teacher's desk. Slowly, the Trunchbull's eyes follow theirs to the desk, to her water glass, where the newt is swishing around happily. The Trunchbull screams an ear-shattering scream.
Actually, it's a newt.
What did you say, Wormwood?
It's a newt, Miss Trunchbull. Isn't it, Miss Honey?
Stand up, you villainous sack of ghost slime! You!
No, Miss Trunchbull.
Lavender looks around. Should she speak up? The Trunchbull advances on Matilda.
You didn't like the jokey, did you? Well, Miss Putrid Fungal Sack of Sewage! Have you ever heard of Leavensworth Prison?
Matilda is so petrified with fear, she looks calm.
In Kansas?
I'm leaving this room and calling my SWAT team, who will take you immediately without trial to Leavensworth, where you will rot behind bars for the next 47 years.
For what, Miss Trunchbull?
This newt, you pissworm!
But I told you I didn't do it.
Who cares?
Matilda stares at the Trunchbull narrowly. We've seen this look before, and we begin to hear the sound of forest fires.
I'm going to punish you anyway!
Cutting back and forth from Matilda's face, closer and closer, to Miss Trunchbull's face, closer and closer.
Because I'm big and you're small, and I'm right and you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it.
To the glass of water, closer and closer. Rhythm accelerating as the camera moves in. The Trunchbull's face is right over the pitcher and glass. Zoom in on Matilda's pupils. Fire in Matilda's eyes. The forest fire sound grows louder.
In this classroom, in this school, in this universe, I am God.
On the word God, the glass explodes. The newt flies up onto the Trunchbull's dress. And the Trunchbull screams and tears at her clothes in a frantic aboriginal dance, trying to get away from the newt. The class erupts in laughter. Nigel scoops up the newt to rescue it. The Trunchbull, soaked and shaking, points at Matilda accusingly.
I didn't move.
You didn't, Miss Trunchbull. Nobody did. It just happened.
The Trunchbull eyes the class coldly. Their giggling dies.
I'll be watching you. Each and every one. I'll be there when you turn the corner, when you go to your little cubbies to get your smelly little coats, when you skip merrily to lunch. I'll be watching.
He turns and glares at Matilda with cruel eyes.
And especially you.
She leaves. A beat. Miss Honey looks about helplessly at the mess.
Class, why don't you go outside and run around for a while?
The children scamper out, buzzing about what they've just seen. Matilda stays. She slowly approaches Miss Honey's desk.
Miss Honey? Miss Honey, I did it.
You did what, Matilda?
I knocked the glass over.
Oh, sweetheart. Don't let Miss Trunchbull make you feel that way. Nobody did. It was an accident.
No, I did it. With my eyes. Watch. I'll show you.
Matilda sets up the water glass, filling it from the pitcher. Miss Honey watches with a curious expression. She's seen Matilda do remarkable things before. Matilda stares hard at the glass. Nothing happens. Matilda's brow furrows. Her eyes stare so hard they almost cross. Nothing happens. Her lips move slightly. Go, go. The glass does not budge. Dismayed, Matilda looks at Miss Honey.
I really did knock over the Trunchbull's glass, Miss Honey.
Miss Honey hugs Matilda.
It's wonderful you feel powerful, Matilda. Most people, including myself, don't feel powerful at all in the face of Miss Trunchbull.
You don't believe me.
Something about Matilda makes Miss Honey almost believe her. Of course, it's completely impossible, and yet...
I believe in you, Matilda. I think you should believe in everything you have inside you. Believe it with all your heart.
They smile at each other.
Matilda, Matilda, would you like to come to my house? We could talk, not about this event. This event. Just
I'd like that very much, Miss Honey.
Cut to exterior Crunchbull Hall Primary School day. From a great distance, we see the wispy young woman and wispy young girl exit the schoolyard. Matilda takes Miss Honey's hand and skips happily. Exterior residential neighborhood day. Large, old, friendly houses, some modest, some rather grand, the kind of neighborhood your grandmother might have lived in. Still from a distance, Matilda is trotting beside Miss Honey with wild little hops. Her fingers fly in the air as she speaks, her words going off like fireworks with terrific speed. Miss Honey laughs, listening attentively as they walk. Sweet music plays. This feels like a 1960s love montage. Then Miss Honey stops, and Matilda sees her staring at POV exterior, a large old house day. A large old house, almost a mansion, commands a broad lot. The gardens are overgrown, and the dilapidated house seems slightly ominous. A ruined child's swing is overgrown with late roses.
That's where Miss Trunchbull lives.
Why is there a swing?
Miss Honey doesn't reply, but gingerly leads Matilda on.
Matilda, I'll tell you a story.
As they walk, the houses get further apart, and soon countryside takes the place of the residential streets.
Once upon a time, quite a while ago, there was a little girl, someone I know, who lived in a house with flowered wallpaper and a big garden. Her parents were wonderful. Her life seemed good and happy.
Matilda listens, imagining an exaggerated and theatrical scene with low and forceful angles, the acting heavy with symbolic gestures, rather like a silent film. Interior corridor of a very old house, night.
But this little girl had a series of disasters befall her.
A very little girl, too, in a turn-of-the-century dress, waits by a tall door. The door flies open and her father rushes out, distraught. The little girl peeks into the room. From the child's POV, a figure on an old-fashioned bed. The body on the bed is covered. A young woman's thin hand lies on the sheet, not moving.
The first disaster came when the girl was 2 years old and her mother died.
Exterior very old house day. The very little girl and her bereaved father wait on the porch of their house. The aunt, a very tall, mean woman, arrives in an ancient taxi and gets out and surveys the grounds with an air of ownership.
The girl's father was a doctor, and he had to have someone look after things at home. So he invited the mother's stepsister to come live with them. This was the second disaster.
Interior house day. Father rises from the breakfast table, kisses the girl, and leaves. As soon as he's gone, the aunt reaches over and tweaks the very little girl's nose viciously.
For the girl's aunt was a mean and superstitious person who treated the girl very badly. And the third disaster was worst of all.
Exterior house day. The girl, now 5, comes running out of the house weeping and shouting, "No, no, no."
When the girl was 5, her father suddenly died, and she was left alone with her horrible aunt.
The aunt emerges and stands on the porch, looking at her niece weeping on the swing. The aunt smiles wickedly.
How did the father die?
A coffin is carried from the house.
Well, he was a very happy and sensible man, but the authorities decided. They said he'd taken his own life. He killed himself.
But why? Why would he?
Exterior countryside day.
No one knows.
Miss Honey and Matilda have paused in a small lane overgrown with wild honeysuckle. Miss Honey opens a rural mailbox, checks the mail, and finds none. They start down the lane.
What a sad story. Do you think the aunt killed him?
It's a terrible thought, but it did cross my mind. From that day on, the aunt was the girl's legal guardian and ruled her life.
They walk along a beautiful lane bordered by wild honeysuckle and foxgloves and golden-leaved trees sheltering their path.
But when she grew up, she escaped, right?
No, the aunt said the girl owed her a lot of money for bringing her up. She made the girl sign something saying she worked for her aunt until she paid back all the money.
That's the end of the story?
Miss Honey helps Matilda climb over a vine-covered fence.
The aunt is happier. The young woman found a small cottage that a farmer wasn't using. She covered it with honeysuckle and moved out of her wicked aunt's house and finally got her own freedom.
Good.
Do you see why I'm telling you this story?
Matilda shakes her head.
You were born into a family that doesn't always appreciate you, but one day you will be free. Let's go inside and have some tea and cookies, shall we?
They have come to a tiny, doll-sized cottage covered with honeysuckle. Matilda stares at it and blinks.
This is the cottage from your story.
Miss Honey nods.
The little girl, the young woman, is you?
Yes.
But then, no. Your aunt is the Trunchbull?
Horror on Matilda's face. Insert from before, exterior, Trunchbull's front porch day. The mean old aunt turns away from watching her weeping niece, and now we see her face is the Trunchbull.
Yes, she is.
Cut to interior, Miss Honey's cottage day. Miss Honey lifts an iron kettle from the hearth to pour tea. Matilda nibbles a cookie. They're seated on tiny chairs with the cottage door open to the sun.
Why don't you run away?
I often want to, but I can't abandon my children.
You're very brave, Miss Honey.
I don't know. If I were really brave, I'd walk straight up to the Trunchbull's house, my house, and
tell the old walrus to leave?
no.
What treasures?
Just little things from my childhood. They don't mean anything to Aunt Trunch, but they mean the world to me.
Miss Honey, that's your house.
I know.
Those are your treasures.
I know.
You should have them.
Yes. Yes, I should.
A beat. Miss Honey looks at Matilda. This tiny child is giving her strength. Suddenly, it all seems so simple.
Let's go.
She heads for the door. Matilda is amazed.
Now?
Cut to exterior, the street near the Trunchbull's house, late day. Matilda and Miss Honey walk along hand in hand, determined. They have a kind of strength together.
I think I can actually do this. Miss Trunchbull, I want my things.
Louder.
Miss Trunchbull, I want.
She stops. They've come around a bush and are in plain sight of the house, from which Trunchbull is exiting, carrying her gym bag, a hunting crossbow, and a javelin. Miss Honey pulls Matilda back behind a hedge.
She's going to the gym.
They watch as the Trunchbull notices the front wheel of her car is parked on the top of her newspaper. She lifts the car up, retrieves the paper, and casually drops the car, which bounces on its crummy shock absorbers, courtesy of Harry Wormwood. Behind the hedge.
Go, tell her.
Miss Honey's courage is evaporating. She shakes her head and watches. POV exterior of the Trunchbull's house, late day. A black cat ambles across the driveway, directing the Trunchbull's path. The Trunchbull freezes and then edges away. Behind the fence, Matilda whispers to Miss Honey.
She's scared of a cat?
Black cat. She's very superstitious.
On the driveway, the Trunchbull makes a spooking gesture. The cat stares at the Trunchbull. Doesn't budge. Finally, the Trunchbull sidles in the other direction to the other side of the car and gets in the opposite door and slides over to the driver's seat. Miss Honey watches as the Trunchbull fires up the engine and tries to run over the cat. As Miss Honey shakes her head and looks towards Matilda for a shared reaction, she sees Matilda scampering towards the back door.
Matilda!
She runs after her. Exterior Trunchbull's house, back door, day. Matilda turns the back doorknob. Unlocked. She and Miss Honey exchange a look.
5 minutes.
Matilda pushes the door open. Interior Trunchbull's house, kitchen, day. Matilda tiptoes through the grand old kitchen. It's like an empty theater set, the site of many former lively scenes, but now silent, the countertops completely bare. Real food hasn't been cooked here in years. She and Miss Honey tiptoe through. The floor creaks underfoot, changing like a hollow sound. Or changing to a hollow sound. Matilda stoops to examine a hook protruding from the floor.
Trapdoor to the basement. She used to put me there sometimes.
Matilda winces and spooked. They move on. Exterior, street not far away, day. The Trunchbull's car is sputtering wildly, slowing. It stops. The Trunchbull's eyes bulge as if they're about to explode. Interior, Trunchbull's house, living room, day. Miss Honey looks around in an eerie silence. The living room is still and the fine furniture undisturbed.
It's just as it was.
She keeps turning, looking. Suddenly, she gasps. She crosses to a beautiful enameled box.
My father's chocolate box.
Her trembling fingers open the lid. A row of beautiful truffles in pretty gold-tipped papers.
You have to order them specially from Belgium. Auntie Trunch would say, Magnus, don't waste those on a child.
Your father's name was Magnus?
Magnus. He left to share one with me after supper. He takes his penknife. He called it his chocolate knife. And he cut one carefully in 2 pieces. And he always gave me the big half. After he died, Auntie Trunch would count the chocolates so I wouldn't sneak any. She opened the box and bring one to her lips and say,
Insert Matilda's image of that long ago scene. The Trunchbull bites into the beautiful chocolate.
Much too rich for children.
In the present, Miss Honey has brought the truffle to her own lips, but she stops, petrified by a long-suppressed fear. Matilda gently urges.
Go on.
Miss Honey quickly puts the truffle back.
Take the box.
No, there's something else.
She hurries to the stairs. Matilda follows. Exterior street nearby, day. Car trouble. The Trunchbull pushes her rotten car back up the hill. She's sweating and cursing, but she's moving surprisingly fast. In fact, her house is in sight. Interior upstairs hall, Trunchbull's house, day. Miss Honey leads Matilda cautiously along the hallway. Matilda takes in a few things. A discus displayed on the wall with a trophy, a javelin, a shot put. Miss Honey hesitates beside a half-open door. Murky-looking bedroom filled with state-of-the-art weightlifting equipment.
This is my father's room. Now it's Auntie Trunch.
Matilda peeks inside. Miss Honey turns. Across the hall is a dusty door. She turns the knob, and the door creaks open. Interior Miss Honey's old room, the Trunchbull's house, day. Sweet, old-fashioned, with flowered wallpaper, and a little bed with a white quilt. On the bed are worn stuffed toys, a stitched pillow, and a flute. Miss Honey takes it in with wonder.
Everything's the same.
She picks up a faded embroidered cloth, and under it is a worn china-faced doll. Miss Honey cradles the doll lovingly.
Oh, my mother gave me this doll. We used to call her Lissy. Oh shit, I remember. Lissy doll.
She sits on the bed and shares the doll with Matilda, who strokes it gently.
I see what you mean about treasures.
Past them, we see, POV through the window, exterior Trunchbull's house. The Trunchbull has abandoned the car and is approaching the house, her huge hunting bow slung over her shoulder. Interior Miss Honey's room, continuous time. Matilda curiously picks up the toy flute and plays a few notes. And she notices Miss Honey is gazing at a photograph. Miss Honey's mother in an oval on one side, her father on the other. Miss Honey's mother is young and very beautiful, with a kind face and gentle smile. She looks a lot like Miss Honey.
She's beautiful. She looks like you. And this is Magnus?
Miss Honey nods. The photo shows a strong, gentle, and very sane man. Matilda looks at him intently.
I don't believe he killed himself.
Neither do I.
Miss Honey turns her head away, realizing the meaning of what she's just said. At that moment,
Roald!
Matilda and Miss Honey practically leap out of their skins.
I am going to...
Interior the hall, Trunchbull's house, day. Matilda and Miss Honey rush into the hall and look down through the balustrade. POV below them, interior living room. The Trunchbull is yelling into the phone.
I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to sound me.
The interior, the upstairs hall. Matilda bolts into the nearest room, and Miss Honey follows. Interior, abandoned bedroom used as a storeroom, day. Into a gloomy, abandoned extra bedroom.
Through there.
She hustles Matilda past boxes and old gym equipment. Matilda nearly stumbling over an Electrolux-style vacuum cleaner. They scoot through, interior a small bathroom with 2 doors, one on either side, which connect the extra bedroom with Miss Honey's old room. Miss Honey yanks open the door to her old room. Downstairs, interior living room, Trunchbull's house. The Trunchbull slams down the phone and then freezes, staring. The chocolate box is partially open. She lifts the chocolate box lid and stares into the box. Yes, there it is. The Trunchbull's sharp eyes see it at once. She picks up a single bonbon. Its pleated gold paper cup is very slightly dented. The Trunchbull looks around, slowly, menacingly searching for her prey. Someone is here. Interior Trunchbull's bedroom, Miss Honey's bedroom hallway, day. Miss Honey pokes her head out of the room and listens. Nothing. She scoots Matilda out into the hallway and then opens a narrow door, revealing a back stairway. She whispers,
Go halfway down, quietly. I'm going to make a noise and draw her up here. When you hear her coming up those stairs, scoot all the way down and out the kitchen door. Don't worry about me. I know how to get out.
from below, terrifying.
Who's in my house?
Matilda skips through the door to the back stairs and disappears. The Trunch's footsteps trudge menacingly up the main stairs. Miss Honey ducks into her old room just as the Trunch's head appears on the stairs. The Trunch sees the door closed to Miss Honey's old room. Trunch rushes down the hall into Mrs. Honey's old room, but Miss Honey slips out of the extra bedroom door. She has gone through the connecting bathroom. She starts towards the main stairs, but hears a noise in the extra room behind her. As that door opens, Miss Honey scurries back to re-enter her own room, just as the Trunchbull comes out of the extra room. The Trunchbull stands in the hallway for a moment, her senses hyper-alert. Which way? She tiptoes warily towards Miss Honey's old room. A noise comes from downstairs. Interior kitchen, day. Matilda is frantically pulling on the back door handle. It's locked. She runs to the window and tries it. Nailed shut. Footsteps running above. The Trunchbull is coming. Matilda yanks open another door. The ironing board falls down, clunk, nearly beaning Matilda. She looks around desperately for a place to hide. But where? Interior living room and front stairs, day. The empty living room. The empty staircase. Trunchbull vaults into frame, having leapt over the balustrade. Furniture rattles an 8.2 on the Richter scale. Trunchbull moves relentlessly towards the kitchen. Interior kitchen, day. Matilda casts around helplessly. The Trunchbull's footsteps shakes the floor. She's coming. She's almost here. Interior kitchen, day. The Trunchbull slams aside the kitchen's half door, and the kitchen is empty. She eyes the ironing board, which is still open. We see, though the Trunch does not, tiny feet under the kitchen table, which has a floor-length tablecloth. The Trunchbull sniffs warily. We expect her to mutter fee, fi, fo, fum. She goes to the pantry, opens the door, and looks in. Empty. She turns again and surveys the room. From Matilda's POV, the huge Trunchbull's shoes are turning slowly in a circle.
I know you're here. I can feel it.
Now the huge shoes are moving towards the table. They stop inches from Matilda. The huge Trunchbull hand reaches down and lifts the edge of the tablecloth. Under the table, Matilda's eyes widen. Terrified, she looks around. On the Trunchbull smiles. She leans her head down, way down, and looks under the table. Nothing. Just empty floor. Frowning, Trunchbull stands back up. Under the table, Matilda has suspended herself just under the surface of the table by pressing her hands and feet against the table legs. On the front door, Miss Honey slips down the main stairs. Quietly, she turns the handle to the front door. As she opens it, in the kitchen, curtains rustle. Wind. Then from the living room, the soft click of the front door. With an enraged snarl, the Trunchbull whirls, races towards the front door. Matilda scoots out from under the table, runs to the basement's trap door, and vanishes down the hole. The trap door drops closed behind her. Slam! In the living room, at the sound, the Trunchbull whirls and sprints back from the front door. Interior basement, Trunchbull's house, day. Matilda scoots down the rickety ladder and arrives at the bottom to find this is a bad place. Dark, dank, smelly, black as Jonah and the whale, with strange clanking pipes and twisty, peeling electrical conduits hanging down like moss. Above her, the trapdoor flies open, sending down a shaft of murky light that barely misses Matilda. Matilda runs around behind the boiler. The Trunchbull is careening down the rickety ladder, muttering curses, breathing heavily as a steam engine. Desperate, Matilda looks frantically about and spies a window covered with gruesome cobwebs. She scrambles towards it, clambering up over old furniture and storage boxes. She reaches the window, throws it open, and dives out, just as the Trunchbull comes behind the boiler. She sees the wisp of material outside the window. It vanishes. Like an enraged attack dog, Trunchbull leaps towards the window, boxes tumbling underfoot. The Trunchbull wedges the top half of her body out the window, but that's it. She's stuck. Enraged, she bellows. Exterior Trunchbull house. Late day. Accompanied by the Trunchbull's bellowing, Matilda runs around the house towards the street and right into Miss Honey's arms.
Oh, Miss Honey,
I know. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have tried it.
She's horrible. She's so
I know. Oh, sorry. I know. Auntie Trunch always wins.
Matilda nods. But as she does, she sees something. The black cat slinking by. Matilda blinks, a thought registering.
maybe not always.
Miss Honey frowns. What does that mean?
Matilda, we don't have the power to take on Miss Trunchbull.
Matilda nods and cocks her head, thinking. She has a very determined look on her face.
Then we have to get the power.
Cut to exterior Wormwood House late afternoon. Matilda strides towards her house with the same look of extreme determination. Interior living room, Wormwood House late afternoon, and heads purposefully into the kitchen. Her mother's voice rings out with a false social gaiety.
Came home with $2,000 cash, and I threw it in the air, and we both have swam in it like fish.
Male laughter. Matilda strides through the living room.
That was the old days. Now he's a tightwad. He dyes his hair white, and he eats fried food and burps out both ends all night long.
Interior of the kitchen, Wormwood House late afternoon. Matilda stalks into the kitchen.
He's got money in the banks all over the planet. And does he give me a dime? A nickel?
Matilda barely glances at the two FBI twins sitting at the kitchen table, casually tape recording the conversation.
Matilda, this is Bob and Bill.
They're cops.
Helping herself to a glass of water in the sink.
They're not cops. They're Evan Root salesmen. Kids today. They're so cute, you'll want to kill them.
Interior hall, Wormwood House, late afternoon. As Matilda moves towards her door, we see her dad enter, slamming the front door behind her.
What's for dinner, baby face? I'm starved.
Interior kitchen, Wormwood House, late afternoon. Zinnia reacts with immediate guilty alarm.
Oh my God, what time is it? Just a second, hun.
And starts grabbing up pots, slamming them onto the stove. Interior Matilda's room, Wormwood House, late afternoon. Pots and pans clatter faintly. Matilda stares intently at the glass of water which she has set on the desk. Interior kitchen, Wormwood House, day. Mrs. Wormwood is a culinary dervish, frantically tossing instant food mixes into pots and pans. Wormwood comes in and halts.
What is this? Some kind of hot tub party? Who are these guys?
Interior Matilda's room, day.
What's going on here?
They're cops, Dad.
Matilda, chin on her hands, stares at the glass, trying to repeat what she did at school. Very faint forest fire sound. Interior kitchen, Wormwood House, day. Mr. Wormwood yanks open the kitchen door and motions them out.
Get out of here. I slave all day and come home to find you buddying up with a couple of surfer dude bodybuilders.
As the FBI twins edge towards the door, from Matilda's room, faintly comes Matilda's voice, correcting.
They're cops.
FBI 2 flashes a speedboat pamphlet at Wormwood.
Ace Powerboats. Could I interest you in a timeshare?
Wormwood shoves the speedboat salesman out of the door. Entering Matilda's room, Wormwood House, day. Matilda continues to stare at the glass with faint forest fire sounds. From the next room.
You don't even let me talk to people. I'm in a cage, Harry. A cage.
Matilda keeps staring, but all she can muster is a slight ripple on the surface of the water.
A man is entitled to come home and find dinner on the table without having to wait through a convention of merits.
Matilda shakes her head, frustrated, and thinks.
Dad? Hey, Dad.
What do you want?
Yell at me, okay?
Shut up and let us fight, you little bug turd.
The forest fire sound grows louder. Matilda looks at the glass, and it begins to shake.
Yell at me again.
His footsteps stomp towards her as.
Yell at you. I'll come in there and pound your miserable hide.
Matilda's eyes widen. The forest fire sound intensifies dramatically. She turns, looks at the door, and his footsteps getting closer, his voice enraged.
What do I have to do to get respect around here? My word ain't not in the stand law. If I have to knock some sense into you.
He's almost at her door when fire flashes in Matilda's eyes. Wham! The door slams shut. The lock turns. The door handle rattles as Wormwood curses off screen. Matilda sighs with relief and satisfaction. I do have powers. Cut to interior Wormwood House day. Beautiful suburban morning. Mr. Wormwood swings out of the house going to work. Mrs. Wormwood kisses him and calls after him supportively.
Goodbye, sweet stallion. Make some money.
Inside, interior Matilda's room morning. Matilda blasts her father's hairdryer at her face as...
Michael, eat your breakfast. The school bus is coming. Matilda.
As Mom's footsteps click towards Matilda's room, Matilda quickly shoves the hairdryer under her pillow. Mom enters.
Get out of bed, you little cankersaur.
And halts to see Matilda lying in bed, gasping in an exaggerated fashion.
What? Oh my God, she's dying. Why do you do this to me? You know how busy I am. I can't take you to the doctor. Honestly. Swear that child makes more demands on me. Michael, let's go.
The door slams. Matilda hops out of bed. Interior Wormwood House kitchen later. Matilda stares intently at a single cornflake. Using all of her concentration, she's able to move the cereal flake ever so slowly across the table. She shakes her head. Not good enough. She concentrates on the cereal box. It doesn't budge. Matilda concentrates harder. Now the box quivers slightly. Perhaps she should start with something smaller. Matilda looks at her cereal spoon. She stares hard. Harder. The spoon rocks a little, but is still. Matilda frowns, irritated, and puts her hand over her eyes to think. She remembers voices.
Are you in this family? You're a cheat. You lying little earwig. I'm right and you're wrong.
As if propelled by Matilda's rising anger, the cereal box lifts slightly and hovers a few inches off the counter. Matilda opens her eyes. It worked. She concentrates. Flash insert. Miss Trunchbull pulls Matilda by the hair. Fantasy and memory. Miss Trunchbull turns around on the porch with a malevolent expression. Back to the scene. Matilda stares hard at the cereal box, focusing her anger. Distant forest fire sound. The cereal box rises and tips over, pouring cornflakes into her bowl. Matilda stares at her spoon. The spoon jiggles, then rises and hovers over the bowl. Matilda blinks, losing her train of thought. The spoon plunges into the cereal bowl, splashing milk out of the bowl. Patiently, Matilda stares at the spoon. Slowly, it rises, floats over to Matilda, and hovers uncertainly, level with her mouth. Matilda leans forward, slowly, focused, and triumphantly grabs the spoonful with her teeth. Cut to interior living room later. This starts slowly and builds to a raucous musical scene. Matilda stands on the couch like a maestro conducting an orchestra. All over the room, small objects are animated, though not yet simultaneously. Pots knock together, pitchers chime, sofa pillows rise and fall with a soft percussive sound, books open and shut, and videotapes eject themselves with a pleasant, familiar noise. Matilda gets the sofa pillows going, then adds in the books, only to then have the sofa pillows collapse. She gestures the pillows back in and signals the videotapes, only to have the books flop over, and so on. At last, she gains total command, working everything together. Exterior, Wormwood House, day. The two FBI men peer through the binoculars, watching the shades fly up and down, the lights flash on and off. Faint musical sounds of pots clanging and other noise. Little puffs of smoke emit from the chimney rhythmically.
Thought the girl was home by herself.
So did I. Looks like code 11 to me.
Simultaneously, they raise their walkie-talkies with a sober demeanor of two generals about to announce a massive invasion. Cut to interior living room, Wormwood House evening. Just another evening at the Wormwood House. Except Matilda is girding for battle. Undercurrent of drums, Matilda moves predator-like through the house, carrying a knapsack. The camera stays with her. She cruises past Michael, who's firing a ping-pong ball gun at the wall, whacking at the rebounded balls with a fly swatter. As Matilda slips past, she eyes him. Is he watching? No. We hear a distinctive zipper sound, zip, as she tucks something into her knapsack. Matilda cruises into the dining room. The dining room table, never used for a family meal, is a repository for junk. Here, Mr. Wormwood sorts through a heap of travel brochures, furrowing his brow over unfamiliar names.
Zaire, Sunny Vietnam, Tierra del Fuego? Honey boogers, where the hell is Tierra del Fuego?
Mrs. Wormwood is in the kitchen.
What am I, a phone book? Before or after liposuction?
Matilda cruises past. On the table is a flashlight marked with crude permanent marker. Harry Wormwood's Do Not Touch. Zipper sound. Zip. The flashlight is gone. In the kitchen, Matilda cruises past her mother, who is again in hair foils, talking onto the cordless phone and eating ice cream.
I know, but Valerie wasn't validating his feelings.
On the counter is a bottle of Joy liquid dish detergent.
Oh, that was before the sex change thing. Ouch. On a waterbed? How many stitches?
Matilda walks past the Joy liquid. Zipper sound. Zip. The detergent bottle is gone.
Nah. Just zap it in the microwave for a couple seconds.
Matilda slips out of the side kitchen door. Interior garage, Wormwood house evening. Same predator-like glide as Matilda walks among stacks of unopened UPS boxes, past Wormwood's tools, all marked Wormwood Motors, do not touch, we do not lend tools, etc. From time to time, Matilda pauses briefly, zip, and then moves on, until she stops and stares. POV, interior the garage window, exterior evening. The two FBI twins have pressed a video camera against the window glass and are taping the contents of the garage. Cut to interior dining room, Wormwood house evening. Zinnia and Harry and her brother Michael are gathered around the dining room table, arguing over the brochures.
We can go anywhere in the world. There are places in the Sahara Desert where no one could find you. Antarctica, Siberia.
Matilda has emerged with her knapsack.
Daddy?
Wormwood turns on her, annoyed that she is interrupting their family discussion.
Those boxes in the garage, are they auto parts that have been taken off of stolen cars?
I have no knowledge where these auto parts come from. They just happen to be purchased by mail at a very reasonable price.
Matilda nods. Oh, I see.
Aren't you afraid you'll get caught?
Wormwood smugly waves a fistful of brochures at her.
Hey, by the time kids catch up with me, we'll be sunning ourselves on a beach in Peru.
Matilda gives a philosophical shrug. She cruises on to exterior Wormwood house evening. Matilda emerges, sees the FBI twins scramble to hide in the bushes in front of the house. Matilda ignores them. She reaches their unmarked car on the street and glances back. The FBI twins, one supporting the other on his shoulders, are videotaping through the front window of the house. Matilda stares at the FBI car. The window slowly glides down magically. Then she moves on. A box floats up from the FBI's car seat, and out of the open window floats a kit of special FBI smoke flares, which follows Matilda out of frame. We hear the zipper sound. Zip. Cut to exterior neighborhood streets evening. Increasing percussive undercurrent as Matilda strides down the street, her knapsack on her back, marching off to battle. She passes the well-lit windows of the houses along her street and sees families in normal life. A father helps a child with homework, a mother plays peekaboo as she dresses her toddler for bed. Matilda squares her shoulders and walks on to exterior Trunchbull's house night. Matilda stares. The Trunchbull's house looks spookier than ever. Exterior Trunchbull's house. In a tree outside the house, up the branches, perches Matilda. The house is dark except for a flickering illumination in the living room. The Trunchbull is doing something in front of the fire. Zip. Matilda opens her backpack and stares at the house. POV, the Trunchbull's upstairs window. The second-story window glides open. Interior Trunchbull's house. A medieval image. The Trunchbull sits by the fire, glazed with sweat, sharpening her javelin. Her lips move, as if uttering some primitive incantation. She stops and cocks her ear. Is that sound inside the house? Upstairs hall, the vacuum cleaner glides down the hall, moved by some unseen power. It stops next to the Joy detergent Matilda took from home. The Joy rises silently into the air. In exterior Trunchbull's house night, Matilda concentrates. Interior downstairs Trunchbull's house night. The Trunchbull listens. The faint rolling sound has stopped. She resumes work on her javelin. Her lips start to move again grimly, and we realize she's singing softly. Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. A new sound. Again, Trunchbull stops and listens. The eerie sound of a flute. Upstairs, growing louder. With concern, the Trunchbull rises, hefting the javelin, and moves towards the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, she flicks on the light and peers up. The Trunchbull ascends the stairs with increasing menace. Upstairs hall. Trunchbull, javelin in hand, moves down the hall towards the sound of the flute. It's now playing a recognizable tune. Some Enchanted Evening. The Trunch stops outside Miss Honey's old room, throws the door open and sees the flute floating in the air over the bed. The Trunchbull blinks, and the flute falls onto the bed. The Trunch relaxes slightly. That's better. Immediately, the curtains rustle from an odd wind. Exterior Trunchbull's house, tree, night. In the tree, Matilda conducts her orchestra of mischief, signals 1, pointing through the window to the hallway. Interior Trunchbull's house in Miss Honey's room. The lights go off. Trunchbull freezes. Exterior Trunchbull's house, Matilda conducting, points 2. Interior Miss Trunchbull's house. The lights come back on. Simultaneously, the water tap turns on in the adjoining bathroom. Exterior Trunchbull's house, tree. Matilda conducting, brings her hands down again. 3. Interior Trunchbull's house. The lights go off again and stay off. The Trunchbull stands uncertainly in the dark. Then, slowly, weirdly, ominously, the door to Miss Honey's old room closes in the Trunchbull's face. The Trunch hears a rhythmic creaking noise from downstairs. She turns in that direction. At the end of the hall, a white sheet hangs ghostly in the air, moving slowly towards her. The Trunchbull's eyes widen in fear. She rears back and hurls the javelin, and the sheet ducks. The javelin sticks into the wall. Thwong. The white sheet advances. Trunchbull grabs the discus off the wall. She curls into position and, with perfect form, of course, spins and hurls. The discus catches the sheet in midair, carrying it through the closed window at the end of the hall. And glass shatters. And the discus and sheet fly through the window. The discus separates from the sheet and smashes the windshield of the Trunchbull's car. The Trunchbull peers out the window, curses in disgust. Interior Trunchbull's house. On the Trunch's backside as she peers out the window. From behind her, another unexpected sound. Meow. Trunchbull turns and sees the black cat sitting in the doorway of the Trunch's bedroom, licking its paws. The Trunchbull recoils, then rushes the cat, hissing, scat. Something scoots out of the extra bedroom, stopping the Trunchbull in her tracks. The vacuum cleaner. Like a cobra rising in the darkness, the vacuum hose undulates upwards. Rim. The vacuum goes on and advances slowly towards the Trunchbull. The end of the hose spews a stream of bubbles, filling the air. The Trunchbull backs away towards the stairway. This is too weird to understand. She's getting closer to the stairs. Closer. Too close. The vacuum hose abruptly starts spewing ping pong balls, firing into the Trunchbull's head. She tumbles backwards down the stairs. Interior Trunchbull's house, first floor. Trunchbull comes flying down, all arms and legs, and crashes with a huge thud at the bottom of the stairs. She sits there, dazed. A sack of flour hovers over her for a moment, then splits open, covering her in white. Once again, the familiar creaking sound, this time close by. The Trunchbull, batting flour out of her eyes, turns to see the old rock. One were sitting on it. Ominous image. Trunch watches with eyes like saucers as the lid of the enamel chocolate box rises. A truffle floats out as if carried by an invisible hand. The truffle moves to mouth level on the rocker and falls as though dropping down someone's throat. It disappears. Another angle the Trunchbull does not see. It's an optical illusion. We see now how the truffle didn't vanish. It dropped behind the couch. It floats out an open window. Matilda's hand pops up, neatly catching the truffle, and tosses it into her mouth. Original angle. More truffles leave the enamel box and go to the rocker and disappear. The rocker keeps moving back and forth, back and forth. The Trunchbull is having a hard time catching her breath. The rocker tips forward slightly, as though someone were getting out of it, and then slowly, gradually comes to a stop. Silence. The Trunchbull looks around. What's next? Upstairs hall, on cue, several special FBI smoke flares ignite and begin to spew smoke, sending it down the stairway. Downstairs, the Trunchbull's eyes widen with terror. Smoke, a lot of it, coming down the stairs, growing thicker, and out of the smoke emerges the sheet. It moves towards her, closer and closer. In the final act of desperation and bravery, Trunchbull lunges, grabs the sheet, pulls it to the ground, revealing something still hanging in the air. the photograph of Magnus and Miss Honey's mother. The photo swoops towards Trunchbull's face. Trunchbull runs screaming towards the front door. Exterior Trunchbull's house, side window. Matilda takes off, plowing headfirst through the bushes. Front porch, night. Trunchbull runs out the front door, bolts around the side of the house, trips and sprawls ignominiously. Exterior street, night. Matilda skips along happily, pack on her back. That was fun. Exterior Trunchbull's house, night. Trunchbull lies in the dirt, catching her breath. She pulls herself up to a sitting position and looks back fearfully towards the house. Then her expression changes. She sees the open window on the ground floor. The Trunchbull climbs to her feet, moves towards the window, and she sees something. She extends her meaty hand and plucks Matilda's red hair ribbon from the bushes. On her face is the beginning of a brutal smile. Cut to exterior Cruncham Hall primary schoolyard, day. As Miss Honey enters the schoolyard, Matilda rushes up to her.
Oh, Miss Honey, I wish you'd been there.
Been where, Matilda?
I scared her right out of her house.
Who?
Miss Trunchbull.
Miss Honey stares, not sure whether to believe.
I used my powers, Miss Honey.
Matilda, I wish I could believe.
Open your mouth.
Matilda holds out a chocolate, proof that she was there. Miss Honey's eyes light up. To her amazement, the truffle floats from Matilda's palm and hovers at Miss Honey's mouth. As Miss Honey stares at it, incredulous, a dark shadow falls.
Good morning.
Miss Honey guiltily snatches the chocolate out of midair and turns. Miss Trunchbull stalks towards them, wild-eyed. The trunch seems to be coming unglued. 2 buttons misaligned on her sweater, shoelaces dragging, her hair askew at startling angles.
I will be teaching your class today.
Between her thumb and finger, she holds a little plastic bag marked evidence. Inside it, Matilda's hair ribbon.
There may be a police officer present.
Matilda stares at the ribbon and her mind goes into overdrive. She takes on the same look as when she's doing a mathematical calculation, the same concentration she showed when moving objects. You can practically hear her mind at work. The Trunchbull seizes another nearby child and grabs Matilda by the collar.
Let's go! Everyone to class! Everybody hop!
Matilda is dragged away, but as the Trunchbull turns to collar another child, Matilda breaks free and runs back to Miss Honey.
Miss Honey, what did your father call the Trunchbull in private?
Trunchbull, enraged, stalks back to get Matilda.
Well, I suppose he called her Agatha. Why?
And did he have a nickname for you? A sweet name?
The Trunchbull is almost upon them, and they still whisper.
Why, yes, he called me his little bumblebee.
The Trunchbull lunges, but Matilda ducks away just under her grasp and runs towards the classroom with the other children. Miss Honey stares after Matilda, completely bewildered. Interior Miss Honey's classroom, day. The Trunchbull's fist slams down onto the teacher's desk.
Water, no, and hold the notes.
As Miss Honey's hurries to fetch it, the Trunchbull fondles her riding crop and gives the class a psychotic stare.
Students, I am here to teach you a lesson. Sometimes in life, horrible and unexplainable things happen. Such things are a test of character.
She continues fondling her riding crop as she walks around, surveying the children.
I suppose you're wondering what I'm talking about. Yes. Last night, a child came to my house.
Miss Honey glances quite involuntarily at Matilda.
A child from this classroom.
Miss Trunchbull picks up the water pitcher, stares at it with a paranoid scrutiny, and then pours herself some water.
In a few moments, an officer of the law will arrive and take that child away. Forever.
Miss Honey's eyes really widen, as do the children's.
So let's talk law. Do you know it is legal to enter someone's home without permission?
Several children clamor.
I know that.
Yeah, I know that. Shut up. Do you know the punishment.
Miss Honey screws up her courage and speaks.
Miss Trunchbull, it was I. I went into your home.
Don't be an idiot. You'd say anything to protect your little doodahs. Do any of you recognize this?
Silence. Miss Honey tries hard not to look at Matilda.
Who in this class likes to wear a pretty red hair ribbon?
The boys look at each other relieved. Not me. Not me. Miss Trunchbull grabs a boy by his bangs and gives his short hair a twist, holds him halfway out of his seat.
This belongs to one of you. Who might that be?
No answer. With a thrust, she releases the unfortunate boy.
Let's play a game. Who was wearing a red ribbon yesterday? And who isn't wearing one today?
The Trunchbull's gaze falls on Matilda, and her lip curls venomously. But Matilda is looking right past her with a curiously blank expression. Faintly, we hear the forest fire.
Stand up, all of you!
Nervous, the children stand, terrified. Miss Trunchbull paces, examining every child.
Miss Trunchbull, I assure you, I'm the one.
The Trunch silences her with a look. As she walks among the children, surveying them menacingly, she touches each one with her riding crop.
No. Let me assure you, the demented, drooling, maggot-faced, slime-breathed little Lilliputian who owns this ridiculous red ribbon will rot in prison for the next 100 centuries.
She whirls, grabs Matilda by the scuff of her neck.
You.
And hoists her up. Before the Trunchbull can continue, the lights in the room flicker on and off, just as they had at the Trunchbull's house. I'm back. The Trunchbull blinks. No, it can't be happening again. She looks around nervously. Her hair actually seems to stand slightly on end. A gasp from Nigel. His eyes are wide as saucers. Hand wavering, mouth quivering, he points in astonishment at the blackboard behind Miss Trunchbull.
What? What is it?
The other children are staring and pointing too. The Trunchbull whirls and sees. A piece of chalk has risen from the chalk holder and is writing on the board. The Trunchbull releases Matilda and stares in horror as the chalk squeaking horribly across the board. Children, transfixed, mouth the letters as they appear. A-G-A-T-H-A.
What is this?
Miss Honey looks at Matilda. Matilda is concentrating, forest fire sound building. The chalk continues writing more quickly, and some children read the words in soft unison.
This is Magnus.
Miss Trunchbull turns pale.
Give my little Bumblebee her house.
No.
Miss Honey's eyes sparkle in happy disbelief.
Give her the money.
No, it can't be.
Then get out
Get
of
out
town.
of town. Miss Trunchbull covers her ears to block the sound of their voices. She starts backing away from the board.
If you don't, I will get you.
you. Miss Trunchbull, muttering, wipes her brow, which is suddenly covered with sweat.
I will get you
like
you got me.
The Trunchbull lets out a gasp. Her breathing is frantic.
That is a
promise.
promise.
The chalk flies back and underlines this last sentence and snaps in two. Miss Trunchbull bolts for the door, but she can't open it. No matter how hard she turns the handle, no matter how hard she pulls, the door won't open. Matilda is staring hard at the door, forest fire sound. The Trunch runs from the classroom window, throws it open, and it's slammed shut. She throws it open again. It's slammed shut again. The children squeal with delight. Whatever's going on here, it's fantastic. The Trunchbull spins from the window, looks at the children, looks at the blackboard. She rushes to the blackboard and tries to erase Magnus's message. As soon as Miss Trunchbull wipes out a word, a piece of chalk rewrites it at great speed, which only makes the Trunchbull erase more frantically, which makes the chalk write even faster. This cartoon-like battle culminating in the chalk itself flying around behind her. Almost faster than the eye can see, the chalk draws target circles on Miss Trunchbull's butt. The children shriek. Nigel, emboldened by the wild goings-on, hurls an apple from his lunch at the Trunchbull's rear. Bullseye. The Trunchbull bellows with rage and rushes the children. The children flee, squealing, half in terror, half delight. Terror out of habit, delight at the hope of whatever wonderful power is at work here will continue to protect them. The Trunchbull pursues the children, but they stay just out of her grasp, flowing this way and that, separating as necessary, like a school of fish avoiding a predator. But Charlie, the boy who was bad at math, suddenly makes a mistake and turns the wrong way, and the Trunchbull seizes him. She runs with him towards the window, holding him overhead. Apparently, the Trunchbull is going to hurl him right through the glass. As she throws him, the window magically flies open, and Charles flies out. Literally, borne across thin air, Charles spreads his skinny little arms and flies. The children shriek as Charles sails out 20 feet, loops the loop, and comes flying back in, landing a powerful two-fisted punch to the Trunchbull's jaw. The Trunchbull goes down with a crash. Trunchbull staggers up, her eyes dark and homicidal. The children quiet briefly. Now they're going to pay. Miss Honey gathers her children behind her protectively.
Come here, children. Stay behind me.
The Trunch glowers at Miss Honey. She lowers her head, bull-like, and stalks menacingly towards Miss Honey. The children herd close behind their teacher. The Trunchbull expects Miss Honey to give way in fear, but instead, the teacher meets her gaze in a standoff. The Trunch fakes one way, and the whole class shifts the other direction. The Trunch lunges the other way, and again the class moves, only this time, Lavender trips. Trunchbull attacks. Lavender scrambles to her feet, but she's cut off from the others. Like a lion or any great hunter, the Trunchbull has selected a single victim. She has Lavender cornered. The Trunch smiles and moves in. Lavender cowers. The Trunchbull lunges, and Lavender's legs swing backwards as she runs up a wall. Miss Honey and the children cheer. Lavender runs across the ceiling. The Trunchbull stares at her open-mouthed. Among with most impossible things, this just isn't possible. The Trunchbull leaps into the air, trying to pluck Lavender off of the ceiling, but even the Trunch isn't tall enough or fast enough. The children cheer and try to run up the walls too. The boy leaps onto his chair, flaps his wings and hoping to fly. No dice. Matilda stands quietly in a corner, smiling to herself. As she leaps into the air, trying to catch Lavender, Trunchbull is attacked by the chalkboard erasers. They fly around her head like bats, clapping together, sending out a cloud of dust. Miss Honey has crouched down. Batting the racers away, Trunchbull leaps again at Lavender. But when she comes down, Miss Honey yanks the Storytime circle rug out from underneath her. The Trunchbull goes down with a crash that shakes the floor. The Trunchbull staggers to her feet, a red-faced leviathan, and is pelted by food. All the kids are pulling stuff from their lunches and hurling it, a barrage of familiar Lunchables, apples, oranges, pop-top cans of diced fruit, packets of Fritos, Dannon yogurt, boiled eggs, peanut butter sandwiches. Behind her, the door to the classroom flies open. Children from other classrooms crowd the corridor, attracted by the loud commotion. Seeing an escape, Trunchbull runs for the door. Just as he reaches it, a banana peel flies underfoot. Interior school hall. The Trunch slides 15 feet into the hall to the wild applause of the children who are watching. The Trunchbull, terrified, runs the gauntlet down the hall as all the children from all the classrooms pelt her with food, erasers, paper airplanes, spitballs, water balloons, etc. Exterior Cruncham Hall school day. The Trunch exits fleeing, pursued by all the children in the school. As the Trunch hits the street, the kids go wild, cheering, tossing books and streamers and soccer balls and basketballs and water balloons and everything imaginable into the air. But not just the children either. Teachers are joining in. The camera pulls back gradually, revealing the scene of gaiety and revelry for the whole school. The whole world celebrates.
Miss Trunchbull ran all the way back to the house she had stolen from Miss Honey.
Exterior Trunchbull's house day. With suitcases piled messily around her, the Trunchbull weaves her beaten-up jalopy down the street, in reverse, the only gear that works.
She stuffed her belongings in a suitcase and fled in the rotten car Mr. Wormwood had sold her.
As she drives away backward, the final indignity occurs. Her front bumper falls off. So much for super glue. Cut to exterior Miss Honey's house, formerly the Trunchbull's house day. Miss Honey sweeps the front porch. Around her are packing cases, a rake. Miss Honey is fixing up the house and moving in.
Miss Honey received a letter from a local attorney saying that her father's house had been left to her, along with his life savings. But events, as wonderful as they are not the end of our story.
Matilda helps Miss Honey reclaim the house. Miss Honey tacks a new trestle in place, and Matilda washes the window shutters. Paintbrushes dip into a can of paint and magically apply a cheerful color over the dilapidated siding.
Did you know that the heart of the mouse beats at a rate of 650 times a minute?
My, where did you learn that?
In a book. It beats so fast, it doesn't sound like it's beating at all. It sounds like it's humming. A porcupine's heart goes about half as fast. A horse's beat is 40 times per minute. That's really slow. Books are so interesting. I love knowing things.
I love knowing you.
They smile. Harry and Zinnia Wormwood and Michael suddenly pull up in front of the house. The car looks hastily packed with a microwave and other belongings sloppily trussed onto the roof. Zinnia hurries across the lawn in her two high heels.
You, hurry up and get in the car. We're going to Guam.
Guam?
Why?
Shut up and get in the car.
Zinnia grabs Matilda's hand and starts pulling her across the yard, even as Matilda resists.
Daddy's not gonna be in the auto business anymore. We're gonna be on a long vacation. And we have to get to the airport ahead of those speedboat salesmen.
I don't want to go to Guam.
Michael leans from the car window. Yeah, me neither. Why do we have to go to Guam? Why not like Tahiti or Hawaii or Spain? Wormwood gets out of the car to help Zinnia wrangle Matilda.
Those are nice places, dimwit. They'll be looking for us in the nice places. Only a jackass will go to Guam.
You want to end up in an orphanage? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't get in the car.
No, I want to stay with Miss Honey.
Miss Honey doesn't want you. Zinnia, grab her the arm.
Miss Honey speaks up forcefully.
I do want her, Mr. Wormwood. Matilda's a wonderful child.
Mrs. Wormwood hoots. Matilda clings to Mrs. Honey and pleads.
Can you adopt me?
Of course, but there's in time, Matilda. We need all kinds of legal forms.
Get in the car.
But I have the legal forms, Miss Honey.
She darts to the porch and grabs up her little school bag.
I Xeroxed them from a book in the library in triplicate.
Are you hearing this, Harry?
Miss Honey looks at Matilda with a hint of a wry smile.
I always say one of the most important things a child can learn is how to use the library.
Matilda offers the papers and pen to her father.
All you have to do is sign them.
Harry Wormwood glares at Matilda stubbornly. In the distance, police sirens. Harry suddenly relents.
All right, what do I care?
Wormwood quickly inspects to make sure that isn't some second page, doesn't want her stealing his signature, and signs. Matilda holds out the pen to her mother.
Mom?
Her mother looks at her sadly. Sentimental tears well up in Zinnia Wormwood's eyes. No mother could ever abandon her child.
You're my only daughter. And I've never understood you, not a tiny bit.
Matilda and Miss Honey hug.
Let's roll. Let's roll.
The Wormwoods pile into their car. Matilda calls cheerfully.
Bye.
But the Wormwoods drive quickly away to the increasing sound of police sirens. Cut to exterior Miss Honey's house, formerly the Trunchbull's house, day. Miss Honey rims the arbor vines as Matilda tries out the child's swing. Just right.
So it was that Matilda and Miss Honey both found what they've been looking for a long, long time. A happy family.
Miss Honey's old cottage now sits in the side yard and has been converted into Matilda's playhouse. Lizzie Dahl sits at the child's little tea table and chairs as Matilda and Miss Honey lounge in the grass, playing with a couple of pet bunny rabbits. On some sweet moment, perhaps just a smile between them, cut to black.
All right, and that is our reading of Matilda. Wonderful job, everyone. Thank you, everyone who was watching. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.